The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Wormholes connect distant points in space through predictable gravitational mechanics. Subspace allows faster-than-light communication. The Bajoran wormhole, stable and ancient, has been studied for years. But what happens when two different universes, two different sets of physical laws, collide in the same space? What happens when a ship traveling through hyperspace intersects with a tunnel through normal spacetime? The answer came without warning, and it would change everything. Deep Space Nine floated at the edge of the Bajoran system, a sentinel guarding the gateway to the Gamma Quadrant. The war with the Dominion had ended months ago, but the scars remained, both on the station's hull and in the souls of those who had fought. Captain Benjamin Sisko stood on the promenade, watching civilians rebuild their shops, attempting to return to something resembling normal life. Quark's bar hummed with conversation. Bajoran Vedeks walked past Federation officers. Klingon warriors shared drinks with former enemies. Then the alarm screamed. "Ops to Captain Sisko!" Major Kira's voice cut through his comm badge with urgent precision. "We have a massive subspace distortion forming near the wormhole. It's not opening normally." Sisko was already running. He burst through the doors to ops within seconds, his command staff already at their stations. The main view screen showed the Bajoran wormhole's location, but instead of the familiar blue-white vortex that heralded the Prophet's domain, space itself was tearing. Colors that had no name bled through the fabric of reality, not the wormhole's opening, but something else entirely. "Report," Sisko commanded. "I'm reading a massive energy surge," Chief O'Brien called from his engineering console, fingers dancing across controls. "It's not matching any known wormhole signature. The chronoton levels are off the charts, but there's also something else, an energy signature I've never seen before." "It's expanding," Kira added, her voice tight. The former resistance fighter had learned to trust her instincts, and right now they were screaming danger. "Whatever's coming through, it's big." Jadzia Dak's hands moved across the science station with practiced ease, her trill spots darkening slightly as she concentrated. "Benjamin, this isn't a natural phenomenon. The energy patterns suggest an artificial wormhole, but the technology doesn't match anything in our database. Not Dominion, not Borg, not even Iconian." "Red alert," Sisko ordered. "Raise shields. Rotate the station to bring all weapons to bear on that distortion. Somebody get me a visual." The rift exploded outward in a cascade of impossible energies. For a moment, the view screen showed two realities trying to occupy the same space. The normal darkness of space overlaid with streams of what looked like hyperspace, a dimension that shouldn't exist in their universe. Then with a final pulse of energy that made every sensor on the station shriek in protest, something emerged. It was a ship, but unlike anything in the Federation database, roughly 300 meters long. Its hull was a mix of gray and white plating with angular, Earth-like design aesthetics, but the technology was clearly far more advanced than any contemporary Terran vessel. Weapon emplacements dotted its surface, railgun turrets, missile pods, and strange crystalline projections that hummed with barely contained power. The hull designation was clearly visible: USS Odyssey, BC-304. "USS?" O'Brien breathed. "That's a Federation prefix, but that's not a Federation ship. Definitely not Starfleet design." "Hail them," Sisko ordered, "and somebody get me Admiral Ross on subspace, now." Before Kira could open a channel, the ship's weapons powered up. Not aggressive targeting locks, but defensive postures. Shields snapping into place with an energy signature that made Dax's console light up like a festival. 4 smaller craft launched from bays on the ship's ventral surface, sleek fighters that banked and formed a defensive screen with precision that would make any Starfleet tactical officer jealous. "They're scanning us," Dax reported. "Very thorough scans. Their sensors are incredibly sophisticated. They're penetrating our shields as if they weren't even there." "Captain, they're responding to our hail," Kira said. "Audio and visual. On screen." The view screen shifted to show the bridge of the mysterious vessel. It was utilitarian, military, reminiscent of pre-Federation Earth naval vessels, but with technology that gleamed with alien sophistication. 5 figures stood on the bridge. 4 were clearly human, but the 5th was something else entirely. A tall, powerful man with a golden emblem on his forehead, his expression utterly calm despite the obvious crisis. The man in the center, wearing what looked like an Earth Air Force uniform with colonel's insignia, stepped forward. He was perhaps in his 50s, with gray-brown hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. When he spoke, his tone was cautious but firm. "This is Colonel Jack O'Neill of the United States Air Force, commanding the Earth vessel Odyssey. We mean no harm, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. To whom am I speaking, and where the hell are we?" Sisko felt the bottom drop out of his understanding of reality. United States Air Force, Earth. But that ship, that technology, none of it existed in Federation records. None of it should exist at all. "I'm Captain Benjamin Sisko, commanding Deep Space Nine, a station of the United Federation of Planets. Colonel, I think we need to talk. Stand down your weapons and we'll do the same." O'Neill glanced at someone off-screen, then back at Sisko. "Federation of Planets. We've got a United Nations and a Stargate command, but no Federation. Carter?" A blonde woman in the same uniform stepped forward, her eyes sharp with intelligence. "Sir, I'm picking up massive inconsistencies in stellar cartography. The constellations are wrong, similar, but definitely not our galaxy's configuration. And that wormhole we came through, it wasn't the Stargate. It was something else entirely." The implications hit everyone in Ops simultaneously. Dax voiced it first, her voice carrying centuries of trill wisdom. "You're not from our universe, are you?" The human woman, Carter, met Dax's eyes through the view screen. Between scientists, understanding passed instantly. "No," she said quietly. "I don't think we are. If you want to see more crossover stories exploring what happens when different universes collide with Star Trek, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character or team you'd want to see in the comments below." "Live long and prosper." Sisko exchanged glances with Kira and Dax. First the Dominion War, now visitors from another reality entirely. The universe, it seemed, wasn't done testing them yet. "Colonel O'Neill," Sisko said carefully, "I think you and your crew should beam aboard Deep Space Nine. We have a great deal to discuss." O'Neill's expression was skeptical. "Beam? Transport," Carter interjected. "Sir, they're talking about matter-energy conversion, like the Asgard beaming technology, but different." "Right," O'Neill said slowly. "How about we meet halfway? We'll send a team over in a shuttle, a puddle jumper, or whatever you call them here. You can keep your transporters on standby. No offense, Captain, but we've learned to be cautious when dealing with advanced technology we don't understand." Sisko understood that caution intimately. "Agreed. Docking Bay 4, Sisko out." The view screen returned to the image of the Odyssey and its fighter escort, holding position with weapons powered but not targeting. Through the viewport, the stars hung unchanged, but Sisko knew that everything had just shifted. Somewhere out there was an Earth that had taken a different path, developed different technologies, fought different wars, and now both Earths existed in the same galaxy. The question was, what would the Federation and every other power in the Alpha Quadrant do about it? The Defiant class runabout touched down in Docking Bay 4 with practiced precision, but it wasn't a runabout. The craft that settled onto the deck plates was smaller, more angular, with a design philosophy that screamed military efficiency over Starfleet's exploration-focused aesthetic. The hull was matte gray, weapons pods visible beneath stubby wings, and when the rear hatch lowered with a pneumatic hiss, 4 figures emerged into an atmosphere that must have felt alien in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. Sisko stood at the edge of the docking bay, with Kira, Dax, Odo, and Chief O'Brien. Worf had been recalled from the Rotoran, and the Klingon stood at attention, hand near his phaser but not touching it. Security officers lined the perimeter, visible but not threatening. The message was clear. Welcome, but we're prepared. Colonel Jack O'Neill stepped out first, his eyes sweeping the bay with the kind of tactical assessment that came from years of Black Ops experience. He wore no sidearm that Sisko could see, but something about the way he moved suggested he didn't need one to be dangerous. Behind him came Major Carter, a scientific scanner already in her hand, taking readings with the focused intensity of someone who needed to understand everything. The third figure was Dr. Daniel Jackson, wearing civilian clothes and glasses that seemed almost quaint in an era of ocular implants. He looked around with open curiosity rather than suspicion. The fourth figure made everyone in the Federation delegation tense. Teal'c stood nearly 2 meters tall, powerfully built, with a golden emblem embedded in his forehead and an expression of absolute serenity. But it was what Odo noticed first that changed everything. "Captain," the shapeshifter said quietly, his voice carrying nonetheless, "that man has a symbiotic life form inside him. I can sense it." Every phaser in the room suddenly had a hand near it. Sisko raised his hand slightly, calling for calm, but his eyes fixed on Teal'c. The memories of Trill symbionts were benign, but there were other species, the parasites that had infiltrated Starfleet Command years ago, the organisms that took control of their hosts. "Stand down," O'Neill said sharply to his team, though they hadn't moved to draw weapons. Then he turned to Sisko. "Yeah, Teal'c has got a symbiote. Long story, but the short version is, he's not a threat. The symbiote is a larval Goa'uld, but Teal'c isn't a host. He's a carrier. He's in complete control." "Goa'uld?" Dax asked. Her scientific curiosity immediately piqued despite the tension. "Parasitic species that enslaved my people for thousands of years," Teal'c said, his voice deep and resonant. "I serve no false gods. I am a free Jaffa, and I fight to liberate my brothers and sisters from tyranny." The conviction in his voice was absolute. Sisko had heard similar tones from Bajorans who had fought the Cardassians, from Klingons who spoke of honor, from anyone who had endured oppression and emerged defiant. He made a command decision. "Lower your weapons," Sisko ordered. His security team complied, though their wariness remained. "Colonel O'Neill, your friend's struggle sounds familiar. The Bajorans recently won their freedom from Cardassian occupation. We understand what it means to fight for liberation." O'Neill's expression softened slightly. "Good. Because where we come from, we've been fighting that fight for the last 8 years. Multiple galaxies, multiple enemies, and we're still standing. But right now we need to figure out where we are and how the hell we get home." "Then let's talk," Sisko said, gesturing toward the docking bay exit. "Wardroom, we'll share what we know, and hopefully we can help each other." They walked through Deep Space Nine's corridors, and Sisko watched his guests take in their surroundings. Carter's scanner never stopped moving, and Daniel Jackson kept glancing at the Bajoran architecture blended with Cardassian infrastructure and Federation updates. Teal'c moved with perfect situational awareness, noting exit points and potential threats with the unconscious habit of a warrior. O'Neill maintained a casual demeanor, but Sisko recognized another soldier when he saw one. The colonel was cataloging everything. They passed a group of Bajorans arguing with a Ferengi merchant. They passed Klingon warriors sharing blood wine in a corridor alcove. They passed a Starfleet ensign carrying a PADD and a Cardassian civilian working on a wall panel under O'Brien's supervision. "Quite the melting pot you've got here," O'Neill observed. "The Federation is an alliance of over 150-member world," Kira said with pride in her voice. "Different species, different cultures, working together for mutual benefit and peaceful exploration." "Peaceful exploration with battle stations and warships?" O'Neill asked, nodding toward a viewport where the USS Defiant hung in space alongside the Odyssey. "The galaxy isn't always peaceful," Sisko admitted. "We just ended a war with the Dominion, a conflict that cost millions of lives. We believe in diplomacy first, but we defend ourselves and our allies when necessary." They entered the wardroom and Sisko gestured to seats around the conference table. A replicator stood in the corner, and O'Brien automatically ordered coffee for the Federation officers. O'Neill watched the process with interest as steaming cups materialized from energy. "Okay, that's convenient," O'Neill said. "We've got something similar with Asgard replicators, but ours are more limited." "Asgard?" Dax asked, settling into science mode. "Is that a species or a technology?" "Both," Carter replied, accepting Sisko's invitation to sit. "The Asgard are an advanced alien race. One of the 4 great races, actually. They've been allies of Earth for years. The technology on the Odyssey is a combination of our own development and Asgard gifts after we helped save their species from extinction." Odo leaned forward, his changeling features skeptical. "You're saying a highly advanced species simply gave you their technology?" "We earned it," Teal'c stated firmly. "SG-1 has fought beside the Asgard against the replicators, mechanical beings that threaten to consume both our galaxies. The Asgard recognized Earth as the 5th race, worthy of standing alongside the Ancients, the Nox, the Furlings, and themselves." The names meant nothing to anyone in the room, but the implications were staggering. Dax was already accessing the station's computer, pulling up everything they had on alternate realities and dimensional physics. Worf stood silently. But Sisko could see the Klingons' respect for Teal'c growing, warrior recognizing warrior. "Let's start with the basics," Sisko said, folding his hands on the table. "In our universe, Earth is the founding member of the United Federation of Planets. We discovered warp drive in 2003 after making first contact with the Vulcans, a species from the planet Vulcan. We've been exploring the galaxy for over 2 centuries, establishing diplomatic relations, seeking out new life and new civilizations." Daniel Jackson removed his glasses and cleaned them, a nervous habit. "In our reality, there's no record of Vulcans or a Federation. Earth's history was different. In 1928, an artifact was discovered in Egypt, a large ring made of an unknown mineral. It took us until 1994 to figure out how to activate it. The Stargate. A wormhole generator," Carter added, her enthusiasm for the science evident despite their predicament. "It creates stable wormholes to other planets across the galaxy, planets where human populations were seeded thousands of years ago by an alien species called the Ancients. The Goa'uld took advantage of those populations, posing as gods from Earth mythology and enslaving entire worlds. We've been fighting them ever since," O'Neill concluded, "along with the replicators, the Ori, basically evil ascended beings, and various other threats. The Odyssey is one of 4 BC-304 battle cruisers Earth built to defend our planet and our allies." Sisko absorbed this, his mind already working through the implications. An alternate Earth with completely different technology, different allies, different enemies. The Stargate program sounded like it violated every principle of the Prime Directive. Yet these people spoke of liberation and defense with the same conviction Starfleet officers held for their ideals. "The rift you came through," Dax said, pulling up sensor data on a wall display. "We've analyzed the readings. It was a collision between your hyperspace window and our wormhole, the Bajoran wormhole to be specific. It's not a normal wormhole. It's artificially created and stable, leading to the Gamma Quadrant on the other side of the galaxy." "Artificially created by who?" Daniel asked. "By beings the Bajorans call the prophets," Kira said, her voice carrying religious reverence. "We call them wormhole aliens. They exist outside linear time, and they've guided Bajor for thousands of years." O'Neill and Daniel exchanged glances. "So, gods that are actually real," O'Neill said. "Great. Just what we needed. More ascended beings messing with normal folks." "They're not gods," Sisko said carefully, aware of Kira's feelings. "They're highly advanced beings with abilities we don't fully understand, but they're not malevolent." "Neither were the Ancients, originally," Daniel said quietly, "but the Ori, who ascended the same way, decided to demand worship and crushed anyone who refused. Power corrupts, even among ascended beings." The philosophical debate was interrupted by O'Brien's combadge chirping. "Chief, we're getting a priority message from Starfleet Command. Admiral Ross wants an immediate briefing on the new arrivals." Sisko stood. "Colonel, I need to report to my superiors. In the meantime, you and your team are welcome to remain aboard the station. We'll share what information we can, and hopefully, we can work together to find a way to get you home." O'Neill rose as well, extending his hand. Sisko shook it, an old Earth custom that felt oddly appropriate given the circumstances. "Appreciate it, Captain. But fair warning, where we come from, we've learned that trusting the wrong people gets you enslaved or dead. We'll cooperate, but we're keeping our guard up until we know more about this universe and who's in it." "I wouldn't expect anything less," Sisko replied. "Chief O'Brien will show you to guest quarters. We'll reconvene in a few hours." As SG-1 left with O'Brien, Sisko turned to his senior staff. Worf spoke first, his Klingon directness cutting through the uncertainty. "They are warriors, honorable ones, I believe. But their ship possesses weapons far beyond our current capabilities. If they choose to become hostile, we may not be able to stop them." "I don't think they're hostile," Dax said thoughtfully, "but Worf's right about their technology. Did you see the power readings from their shields? And those plasma weapons could tear through our defenses like paper." "Then we make sure they stay friends," Sisko said. "Odo, I want security monitoring their movements, but discreetly. Kira, coordinate with Bajoran authorities. If the prophets have something to say about this, I want to know. Dax, work with Major Carter. Share information carefully, but see what you can learn about their technology." "And the Admiral?" Kira asked. Sisko looked out the viewport at the Odyssey, its alien design a stark reminder that the universe had just become infinitely more complicated. "I'm going to tell him the truth. Earth just met itself, and we have no idea what happens next. The subspace channel crackled to life in Sisko's office, and Admiral William Ross appeared on the view screen. The man looked tired. The Dominion War had aged every Starfleet officer who'd lived through it, but his eyes were sharp as they fixed on Sisko. "Captain, I've read your preliminary report 3 times, and I'm still not sure I believe it. You're telling me there's an Earth military vessel in your docking bay from an alternate reality, armed with weapons that make our current arsenal look like antiques?" "Yes, sir," Sisko confirmed. "Their commander, Colonel O'Neill, has been forthcoming with basic information. Their Earth never developed warp drive. Instead, they discovered an ancient alien artifact called a Stargate, a device that creates artificial wormholes to other planets. They've been fighting a parasitic species called the Goa'uld for nearly a decade." Ross leaned back in his chair, processing. "And their ship, the Odyssey?" "Daedalus-class battlecruiser, sir. It uses hyperspace rather than warp drive for FTL travel. Their shields use technology from a species called the Asgard, highly advanced aliens who apparently gifted them the technology after SG-1 helped save their civilization. The weapons include plasma beams that, according to Chief O'Brien's preliminary scans, could potentially punch through our shields with minimal effort." "Potentially?" Ross asked, his tone making it clear he wanted certainty. "Chief O'Brien says he'd need to run combat simulations, but based on the energy signatures, he estimates the Odyssey could disable a Galaxy-class starship in a prolonged engagement." "Sir, this isn't just advanced technology. It's a completely different approach to the same problems we've solved. Their shields, their weapons, their propulsion, all of it developed independently from a different technological foundation." Ross was quiet for a moment. "Captain, Starfleet intelligence is already scrambling. The Klingons will hear about this within hours. The Romulans probably already know. The Teal'c always does. And if the Dominion has any observers left in the Alpha Quadrant, they'll be very interested in a heavily armed Earth vessel that doesn't answer to the Federation. I'm aware of the political complications." "Sir, political complications?" Ross's expression hardened. "Benjamin, you've just opened Pandora's box. There are going to be admirals who see this as an opportunity, advanced technology ripe for acquisition. There are going to be politicians who see this as a threat, an alternate humanity that might not share our values. And there are going to be enemies who see this as a target." Sisko had already considered all of this, but hearing it articulated made the danger more immediate. "What are your orders, sir?" "Keep them on the station. Be hospitable, but learn everything you can about their capabilities and their intentions. And Captain, if they show any signs of hostility, you are authorized to use whatever force necessary to protect the Federation. I'm dispatching the USS Venture to your location as backup." "Understood, sir. But Admiral, I don't believe they're hostile. They're cautious, professional, and they seem to genuinely want to find a way home." "Then help them find it," Ross said. "But until they're gone, they represent an unknown variable in an already unstable quadrant." Ross out. The screen went dark, and Sisko sat in silence for a moment. Through his office window, he could see the Odyssey hanging in space, its fighter escort conducting patrol patterns around Deep Space Nine. 4 F-302s, Carter had called them. Interceptor craft with weapons that included missiles and energy cannons. Small, fast, and deadly. His comm badge chirped. "Sisko here." "Captain, this is Dax. You need to get down to the science lab. Major Carter and I have been comparing notes, and what she's telling me about their universe is, well, you need to hear this yourself." The science lab was organized chaos. Jadzia Dax and Samantha Carter stood over a display table, showing 2 different star charts side by side, their hands moving in tandem as they manipulated the data. Daniel Jackson sat nearby with a Bajoran pad, reading through historical records with the intensity of a man who'd spent his life decoding ancient languages and lost civilizations. Chief O'Brien stood at an engineering console, his brow furrowed as he studied schematics that Carter had provided of Asgard systems. "Captain," Dax said without looking up, her spots darkening with concentration, "we've confirmed it. Major Carter's universe and ours diverged at some point in Earth's history. The constellations are similar enough to suggest the same galaxy, but stellar drift patterns indicate we're looking at the same space from different quantum realities." "Quantum realities?" Sisko asked, moving to stand beside them. Carter looked up, her blue eyes bright with scientific excitement tempered by the gravity of their situation. "We've encountered alternate realities before. Parallel universes where decisions split timelines into different branches. But this is different. Your universe and ours seem to have diverged much earlier, possibly thousands of years ago. Maybe even at the moment of the Big Bang. The ancients, Daniel interjected, looking up from his reading. In our universe, they seeded human life across the Milky Way galaxy millions of years ago, using the Stargates. But in your universe, there's no record of Stargates or ancients. Instead, you have Vulcans making first contact in 2063 and a Federation that's been exploring space for centuries. Which means, Dax continued, that at some fundamental level, the physical laws of our universes are similar but not identical. Major Carter's hyperspace and our warp drive both allow faster-than-light travel, but they access different aspects of space-time topology. O'Brien grunted from his console. And their Asgard beaming technology is fascinating. It's like our transporters, but instead of converting matter to energy and back, it creates a localized subspace field that moves matter through a parallel dimension. Theoretically, it could beam through shields because it's not operating in normal space. Theoretically, Sisko asked. I'd need to test it to be sure, O'Brien admitted. But if I'm reading these schematics right, their beaming tech is actually more advanced than our transporters in some ways. Less elegant, maybe, but more versatile. Carter smiled slightly. We've transported nuclear warheads into enemy ships mid-battle. It's proven very effective. The casual mention of such tactical applications made Sisko uneasy. Starfleet used transporters primarily for personnel and cargo transfer, occasionally for rescue operations. The idea of routinely using them as offensive weapons spoke to a very different military doctrine. Major Carter, Sisko said carefully, your colonel mentioned you've been fighting these Goa'uld for 8 years. Can you tell me more about them? Carter's expression darkened. The Goa'uld are parasitic beings, snake-like creatures that burrow into a host's neck and take complete control of their body and mind. They posed as gods in Earth mythology, Ra, Apophis, Baal, Anubis, and used the Stargates to build galactic empires based on slavery and worship. Humans kidnapped from Earth thousands of years ago were spread across the galaxy to serve them. And you've been fighting them, Sisko said. Liberating these human populations? When we can, Carter confirmed. The Free Jaffa Nation, warriors like Teal'c, who've rejected the Goa'uld, are our strongest allies. We've also allied with the Takra, a faction of Goa'uld who oppose the System Lords and believe in true symbiosis rather than domination. It's been a long war, but we're winning. Daniel stood, setting down the pad. What's interesting is that your Federation's prime directive would have made everything we've done illegal. You have a policy of non-interference with pre-warp civilizations, but the people we've encountered through the Stargate were humans, genetically identical to us, living under tyranny. We couldn't just leave them enslaved. The prime directive exists for good reasons, Sisko said, though he'd wrestled with its limitations himself. Interference, even with good intentions, can have catastrophic consequences. Cultures need to develop naturally at their own pace. Even when naturally means living as slaves to false gods? Daniel challenged, his academic demeanor giving way to passionate conviction. Captain, I've seen worlds where children were taken as hosts, where entire populations lived in fear of the Goa'uld. The prime directive might work when you're dealing with truly alien species developing independently, but these were humans, our people. We had a responsibility to help them. The debate was interrupted by the door chiming. Come, Sisko called. Odo entered, his face grim. Captain, we have a situation. A Ferengi trader just transmitted a message to the Ferengi Commerce Authority about the Odyssey and its commercially valuable technology. Within the hour, every intelligence network in the quadrant will know exactly what's sitting in our docking bay. Damn, O'Brien muttered. So much for keeping this quiet. Carter's hand moved instinctively to where a sidearm would normally hang. Captain Sisko, how serious is this? Are we talking about espionage, or should we be preparing for an attack? Both, potentially, Odo said. The Ferengi themselves are greedy but not typically violent. However, the Teal'c, Romulan intelligence, will be very interested in your Asgard weapons. The Obsidian Order is defunct, but there are still Cardassian operatives who'd sell information to the highest bidder, and the Orion Syndicate specializes in technology theft. We can defend ourselves, Carter said firmly. The Odyssey has Asgard shields and plasma beams. We fought off Ori warships and Hatak motherships. We're not easy prey. I don't doubt your capabilities, Major, Sisko said, but you're in a new universe with unknown rules. Starting a shooting war in the Alpha Quadrant would make enemies of everyone, including the Federation. We need a better solution. Dax looked up from her console, an idea forming. What if we make the technology less mysterious? If we published basic information about the Odyssey's capabilities, nothing classified, just enough to satisfy curiosity, it might reduce the incentive for espionage and theft. Or it might increase it, Odo countered. Once they know what you have, they'll want it even more. Daniel adjusted his glasses thoughtfully. When we first encountered the Goa'uld, we tried to keep everything secret. It didn't work. But when we started building alliances, sharing selective information with the Tok'ra, the Asgard, the Free Jaffa, we created a network of mutual defense. Maybe you need to do something similar here. Alliances require trust, Sisko said. Colonel O'Neill made it clear his team doesn't trust easily. Neither do we, Carter admitted. But we're pragmatic. If you can introduce us to allies who share our values, freedom, opposition to tyranny, willingness to fight for what's right, we're open to discussions. A thought occurred to Sisko. Major, you mentioned the Free Jaffa Nation, warriors who rejected their oppressors and fought for liberation. There's a Klingon general aboard this station right now who would very much like to meet Teal'c. General Martok commanded forces during the Dominion War and understands the warrior's path better than anyone I know. Carter considered this. The Klingons. Your records mention them. Warrior culture, honor-based society. Teal'c would respect that. But would they respect him? He carries a Goa'uld symbiote, even if he controls it. Klingons respect strength and honor above all else, Sisko said. If Teal'c is the warrior you say he is, Martok will see it. Before Carter could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Sisko's comm badge activated automatically. Ops to Captain Sisko. We have 3 Romulan warbirds decloaking off the station's port bow. They're hailing us. Sisko and Carter locked eyes. That was fast, Carter said. The Teal'c doesn't waste time, Odo confirmed. Sisko was already moving toward the door. Major, I suggest you inform Colonel O'Neill that we're about to have visitors, and I'd recommend powering up the Odyssey's weapons. The Romulans respect strength, but they prey on weakness. Carter was right behind him, already tapping a communication device on her wrist. O'Neill, this is Carter. We've got company, and they don't sound friendly. Recommend going to tactical alert. Through the station's windows, 3 massive warbirds shimmered into existence. Their green hulls gleaming with predatory intent. Their disruptor arrays remained unpowered. But the message was clear. The Romulan Star Empire had arrived, and they wanted answers. The universe, it seemed, wasn't going to give SG-1 or the Federation time to adjust. Events were already accelerating beyond anyone's control. The Romulan commander's face filled the view screen in Ops, and Sisko recognized her immediately. Commander Teal'c, a veteran of border skirmishes, treaty negotiations, and the uneasy alliance during the Dominion War. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes held the sharp calculation of a predator assessing new prey. Captain Sisko, Teal'c said, his voice carrying the formal courtesy that Romulans used when they wanted something. The Star Empire congratulates you on your recent acquisition. A vessel of unknown origin with fascinating technological capabilities. How fortuitous that it should arrive at your station. Commander Teal'c, Sisko replied, keeping his own tone diplomatic. The vessel you're referring to is not an acquisition. It's a ship that arrived through an unexpected dimensional anomaly. Its crew are guests of the Federation, while we work to return them to their universe. Dimensional travelers. Teal'c's expression shifted to one of polite skepticism. How remarkable. And I'm sure their advanced weapon systems, plasma beams that dwarf anything in the current Federation arsenal, are purely defensive in nature. Kira leaned close to Sisko, whispering, he knows too much. Someone's been feeding the Teal'c detailed sensor data. Sisko kept his expression neutral. On the tactical display, he could see the Odyssey moving into a defensive position, its F-302 fighters forming a screen between the Romulan warbirds and Deep Space Nine. O'Neill clearly wasn't taking chances. Their weapons are their own concern, Sisko said carefully. The Federation has no claim to their technology, and neither does the Romulan Star Empire. Of course not, Teal'c agreed smoothly. However, the sudden appearance of a heavily armed Earth vessel that doesn't answer to the Federation raises certain Security concerns. The Treaty of Algeron specifically prohibits Earth from developing certain technologies. While this vessel technically originates from outside our reality, its very existence could be seen as a violation of the spirit of that treaty. It was a masterful political maneuver. The Treaty of Algeron, signed after the Tomed incident, had established the neutral zone and forbidden the Federation from developing cloaking technology in exchange for Romulan non-aggression. Teal'c was attempting to use that ancient treaty as leverage to gain access to the Odyssey's technology, or at the very least, to sow discord between the Federation and SG-1. The Treaty of Algeron applies to the Federation, Sisko countered. These people are not Federation citizens. They're not bound by our treaties. Then perhaps, Teal'c said, his smile turning predatory, we should negotiate with them directly. Before Sisko could respond, a new voice cut across the comm channel, dry, sarcastic, and utterly unimpressed. This is Colonel Jack O'Neill of the USS Odyssey. Commander Teal'c, is it? Let me save us all some time. We're not interested in your treaties, your politics, or whatever game you're playing. We're here by accident. We're leaving as soon as we figure out how, and we're not selling, trading, or sharing our technology with anyone. Are we clear? Sisko closed his eyes briefly. Diplomatic finesse was not apparently one of O'Neill's strengths. Teal'c's expression hardened. Colonel, you are in Romulan-monitored space. The Star Empire takes a keen interest in potential threats to regional stability. Your vessel represents an unknown variable, one that could shift the balance of power in ways that concern us greatly. Not my problem, O'Neill replied. We didn't ask to be here, and we're not looking to upset anybody's apple cart. But if you're thinking about trying something, let me be very clear. We've fought enemies that make your warbirds look like rowboats. So how about we all stay friendly? You go back to whatever it is you were doing, and we'll be out of your hair as soon as possible. The channel went silent for a long moment. Sisko could see Teal'c calculating, weighing options. The Romulan commander was experienced enough to recognize genuine confidence when he heard it, and O'Neill's tone suggested a man who'd backed up his threats before. Captain Sisko, Teal'c said finally, his attention returning to the Federation officer. The Romulan Star Empire will be watching this situation closely. We trust the Federation will ensure that no destabilizing technology enters the Alpha Quadrant through this anomaly. Teal'c out. The view screen went dark, and the three warbirds cloaked simultaneously, vanishing from sensors, though everyone knew they were still out there, observing. Well, Kira said into the silence, that went about as well as could be expected. Get me Colonel O'Neill, Sisko ordered. Now. O'Neill materialized on the transporter pad in ops 15 minutes later, having reluctantly agreed to use the Federation's technology. He stepped off the platform with the wariness of someone who'd been molecularly disassembled and reassembled, even if he didn't show it outwardly. Colonel, Sisko said, his tone carefully controlled, we need to talk about diplomatic protocols. Let me guess, O'Neill replied, matching Sisko's tone with his own brand of dry humor. I wasn't supposed to tell the Romulans to back off. The Romulans are a major power in this quadrant, Sisko explained, gesturing for O'Neill to follow him toward his office. They're cunning, patient, and they never forget a slight. That conversation you just had? Teal'c will remember it, and the next time you encounter the Romulan Star Empire, they'll use it against you. O'Neill dropped into a chair in Sisko's office without waiting for an invitation, his body language deliberately casual. Captain, I appreciate the concern, but where I come from, we've dealt with the Goa'uld system lords, parasitic snakes who think they're gods and have the firepower to make you believe it. We've negotiated with the Asgard, who are so advanced they could turn Earth into a cinder without breaking a sweat. We've faced down Anubis, who had technology that could destroy entire planets. So forgive me if some pointy-eared guys in big green ships don't scare me. They should, Sisko said bluntly, taking his own seat. Colonel, I've read your preliminary reports. Your Goa'uld, your replicators, your enemies. They sound formidable, but they operate by rules you understand. The powers in this quadrant? They play games you've never encountered. The Romulans will smile while they plant surveillance devices in your ship. The Cardassians will befriend you while planning your betrayal. The Ferengi will sell your secrets to the highest bidder. And the Borg. We know about the Borg, O'Neill interrupted. Carter pulled the files. Cybernetic collective, hive mind, assimilation. We've fought the replicators, self-replicating machines that consume everything in their path. Trust me, We can handle robots." "The Borg aren't just robots," Dax said from the doorway, where she'd been listening. She stepped into the office, her ancient Trill wisdom evident in her eyes. "They're a civilization unto themselves. They adapt to any weapon after the first few shots. They turn your own people against you, and they have one goal: perfection through assimilation. Everyone you've ever known, everyone you've ever loved, they become part of the collective, their individuality erased forever." O'Neill's expression shifted slightly, the humor fading. "So, worse than the replicators. Good to know." "What Commander Dax is trying to say," Sisko continued, "is that this isn't your universe, Colonel. The rules are different. The threats are different. And if you keep antagonizing major powers, you'll find yourself fighting a war on multiple fronts without allies." O'Neill was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. When he spoke again, his tone was more serious. "Captain, I get it. You've got a delicate political situation here, and we're a wrench in the gears. But you need to understand something about Earth. My Earth. We spent thousands of years enslaved by the Goa'uld, even if most people didn't remember it. When we found the Stargate and discovered the truth, we made a choice. Never again. We don't bow to threats, we don't negotiate from weakness, and we don't let anyone, alien or human, tell us what we can or can't do to defend our home. That's admirable," Sisko said. "But pride can get you killed. Ask the Dominion. They thought they were invincible until the Federation, Klingons, and Romulans united against them. Ask the Cardassians, who allied with the Dominion and watched their homeworld burn for it. Or ask the Bajorans," Kira added, appearing in the doorway beside Dax, "who spent 50 years under Cardassian occupation, fighting a resistance that cost millions of lives. Sometimes survival means knowing when to bend." O'Neill looked at Kira with renewed interest. "Major Kira, right? Captain Sisko mentioned you fought the Cardassians. Resistance fighter?" "For 15 years, Kira confirmed. "I planted bombs, sabotaged infrastructure, lost friends and family. I learned that fighting isn't just about strength. It's about knowing your enemy, choosing your battles, and surviving long enough to see freedom." "Sounds like Teal'c," O'Neill said. "He fought the Goa'uld from within their ranks for decades before he joined us. You two should talk." "Actually," Sisko interjected, "that's not a bad idea. Colonel, I mentioned earlier that General Martok is on the station. He's Klingon. Warrior culture, honor-based society. Teal'c and Martok might find common ground." O'Neill considered this. "You're trying to build us allies, make us part of your political network so we're not isolated." "I'm trying to keep you alive," Sisko corrected. "And yes, giving you allies in the process. The Klingons respect strength and honor. If Teal'c impresses Martok, you'll have a powerful voice speaking on your behalf when the Klingon High Council hears about the Odyssey. And when they hear about Asgard plasma beams that could rip through their ships," O'Neill asked skeptically. "Then they'll want you as allies even more," Worf said, entering the office with his characteristic directness. The Klingon had been standing guard outside but had clearly been listening. The Klingon Empire values strength above all else. A warrior who commands such power and uses it honorably would be welcomed. A warrior who commands such power and makes enemies of everyone would be destroyed. O'Neill studied Worf for a long moment. "You're Klingon. I am Worf, son of Mog. I serve in Starfleet, but I am Klingon first. And you're telling me to play nice with your people." "I am telling you," Worf said, his tone leaving no room for argument, "that the Empire will view you as either a potential ally or a definite threat. There is no neutral ground. If you wish to survive in this quadrant, you must choose." O'Neill stood, his decision made. "All right, set up a meeting with this General Martok. Teal'c and I will talk with him. But I'm bringing Carter and Daniel too. We don't do anything without the whole team." "Agreed," Sisko said. "I'll arrange a dinner in one of the holosuites. Klingons appreciate both combat prowess and the ability to drink blood wine without flinching. Can your people handle that?" "Teal'c can drink battery acid and not blink," O'Neill said. "Carter's been through enough diplomatic dinners to handle anything. Daniel might struggle with the whole warrior culture thing, but he survived worse. When do we do this?" "Tonight," Sisko decided. "The longer we wait, the more time other powers have to make their moves. Major Kira, please extend the invitation to General Martok. Tell him we have warriors he needs to meet." Kira nodded and left. O'Neill moved toward the door, then paused. "Captain, one more thing. That Teal'c guy? He's not going to let this drop, is he? No, Sisko admitted. The Romulans never let anything drop. They'll probe for weaknesses, look for opportunities, and wait for the right moment to strike. It's their nature. Then we'd better make some friends fast, O'Neill said, because if this universe is half as dangerous as you say, we're going to need all the help we can get to survive long enough to find a way home. As O'Neill left, Sisko turned to his senior staff. Dax, Worf, and Odo remained, each wearing expressions of concern. He's not wrong, Dax said quietly. Every intelligence service in the quadrant will be trying to acquire their technology, some through espionage, others through theft, and some through violence. Then we protect them, Sisko said, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because Earth, their Earth, deserves the same chance at survival that our Earth had. And if that means introducing them to the Klingons, the Bajorans, and anyone else who might become an ally, that's what we'll do. And if Starfleet Command orders us to seize their technology, Odo asked pragmatically. Sisko's expression hardened. Then I'll remind Admiral Ross that Starfleet doesn't steal from refugees. We're better than that. We have to be. Through his office window, the Odyssey hung in space like a promise and a threat. Somewhere out there, the Romulans were watching. The Klingons would be hearing reports. The Cardassians, the Ferengi, the Dominion remnants. Everyone would be calculating how to use this situation to their advantage. And in the middle of it all, 4 humans and a Jaffa from another universe were trying to find their way home through a galaxy that had suddenly become far more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. The game had begun, and the stakes were nothing less than the balance of power in the entire Alpha Quadrant. The holosuite had been programmed to replicate a traditional Klingon Great Hall, high ceilings supported by rough-hewn beams, banners bearing the sigils of noble houses, and a massive table laden with Klingon delicacies that most humans found barely edible. The air smelled of blood wine and roasted targ, and the lighting was appropriately dramatic, casting shadows that spoke of ancient warriors and glorious battles. General Martok stood at the head of the table, his one good eye assessing the newcomers with the intensity of a seasoned warrior. He wore his ceremonial armor, the scars on his face telling stories of battles fought and won. Beside him stood Worf, who had made the introductions with the formal gravitas such an occasion demanded. SG-1 entered together, O'Neill in his dress uniform, Carter in hers, Daniel looking distinctly uncomfortable in formal attire, and Teal'c moving with the fluid grace of a warrior who had walked into countless situations where violence could erupt at any moment. Martok's eye fixed on Teal'c immediately. The Jaffa stood nearly as tall as the Klingon general, his golden forehead emblem catching the light, his posture radiating controlled power. For a long moment, neither man moved. Then Martok threw back his head and laughed, a booming sound that filled the hall. "Now this is a warrior," Martok declared, striding forward. "I am Martok, son of Earthog, general of the Klingon Defense Force, and I have fought Jem'Hadar, Cardassians, and Romulans. But I have never met one who carries his enemy within him and commands it rather than being commanded. Worf tells me you are Jaffa, a warrior who rejected false gods." "I am Teal'c of Chulak," Teal'c replied, his deep voice resonating with the same strength. "I served the Go-Old Apophis for many years, believing him to be a god. When I learned the truth, that the Go-Old are merely parasites who demand worship through fear, I chose freedom. I have fought for 8 years to liberate my people from slavery. 8 years of war against those who enslaved your people," Martok repeated, his respect evident. "That is a battle worthy of song. Come sit. We will drink blood wine and speak of warfare, honor, and the price of freedom." O'Neill caught Sisko's eye and nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement that this was going well. They moved to the table, where Martok personally poured blood wine into massive goblets. The Klingon beverage was notorious for its potency, capable of incapacitating humans who weren't prepared for it. "To warriors who fight for what is right," Martok declared, raising his goblet, "and to enemies who provide glorious battle." "Kapla," Worf added, the Klingon toast for success. Teal'c raised his goblet without hesitation. "To victory and honor." He drank deeply, and Martok watched with approval as the Jaffa showed no reaction to the powerful drink. The symbiote in Teal'c's pouch metabolized toxins instantly. Blood wine might as well have been water. O'Neill sipped more cautiously, managing not to wince. Carter did the same, her scientific mind probably analyzing the chemical composition even as she drank. Daniel took one mouthful and immediately began coughing, much to Martok's amusement. "Your scholar is not a warrior," Martok observed, though without judgment. "Every great commander needs those who understand history and culture. The Klingon Empire honors its scholars as well as its fighters." "Daniel's saved our lives more times than I can count," O'Neill said, "just usually with words instead of weapons." "Words have their place," Martok agreed, settling into his chair. "But tell me, O'Neill, you command a vessel with weapons that my intelligence officers say could destroy a bird of prey in seconds. The Odyssey. Why have you not used such power to conquer?" It was a test, and everyone at the table knew it. O'Neill met Martok's gaze directly. "Because conquest isn't the goal. Defense is. Earth, my Earth, spent thousands of years under the Goa'uld's thumb. We built the Odyssey and ships like her to make sure that never happens again. We fight when we have to, we defend our allies, and we don't back down from threats. But we're not looking to build an empire." "A warrior's answer," Martok said approvingly. "Power wielded for defense rather than domination. The Empire can respect that. But tell me, if you had the power to destroy your enemies completely, would you?" Teal'c spoke before O'Neill could answer. "We have destroyed system lords. We have collapsed Goa'uld dynasties that ruled for millennia. But we do not exterminate species, even our enemies. The Jaffa were slaves, but they were also victims. We fight to free them, not destroy them." "Even after they fought against you for a year?" Martok asked. "Even then," Teal'c confirmed. "A warrior who cannot distinguish between an enemy and a slave is no warrior at all. He is merely a butcher." The table fell silent. Martok studied Teal'c with his single eye, and for a moment, the weight of centuries of Klingon martial tradition met the philosophy of a Jaffa who had learned honor the hard way. Then Martok smiled, not the predatory smile of a warrior seeking combat, but the genuine smile of someone who had found a kindred spirit. "You would have made an excellent Klingon," Martok said. "Your words speak of honor, mercy, and strength combined. These are qualities the Empire prizes, even if we do not always live up to them." "The Jaffa are learning the same lessons," Teal'c replied. "Freedom is harder than slavery. It requires wisdom as well as strength." Sisko watched the exchange with satisfaction. This was going better than he'd hoped. Kira leaned close to him, whispering, "Teal'c reminds me of the resistance fighters, people who had to become hard to survive, but never lost sight of why they were fighting." "General Martok," Carter said, seizing the moment of camaraderie, "I've been studying the reports from the Dominion War. The tactical innovations your forces employed, particularly the combined fleet maneuvers with Starfleet and the Romulans, were impressive. The Goa'uld rarely coordinated with each other. They were too busy fighting for dominance to present a unified front. The Dominion taught us the value of unity," Martok said, his expression darkening with memory. "The founders were cunning enemies. They turned our own people against us, infiltrated our governments, and very nearly destroyed the Alpha Quadrant. We learned that some enemies are too dangerous to face alone." "We learned the same lesson," O'Neill said. "When the Ori invaded our galaxy, Earth, the Free Jaffa, the Takra, and even the Asgard had to work together. No single race could stand against them. The Ori were ascended beings, pure energy entities with the power to destroy planets with a thought. They sent their followers, the priors, to convert or kill entire civilizations." Daniel leaned forward, his academic nature overcoming his discomfort with the blood wine. "The Ori believed that worship gave them power. Literally. They demanded absolute faith and destroyed anyone who refused. We couldn't fight them with conventional weapons. We had to find another way." "And did you?" Worf asked, his tactical mind engaged. "We won," O'Neill said simply. "It wasn't pretty, and it cost lives. But we found a way to kill ascended beings, and we used it. The Ori are gone now, and their followers are slowly learning to think for themselves." Martok raised his goblet again. "Then you have fought gods and emerged victorious. That is worthy of respect. But I must ask, what will you do now? Your ship is trapped in our universe. Your technology makes you a target for every power in the quadrant. Will you fight or will you hide?" "We don't hide," O'Neill said flatly. "But we're not looking for fights either. We want to find a way home. Until then, we'll defend ourselves. We'll help where we can, and we won't let anyone push us around." "Including the Klingon Empire?" Martok asked. though his tone suggested curiosity rather than threat. Including anyone, O'Neill confirmed. But we'd rather have the Klingons as friends than enemies. Teal'c speaks highly of warrior cultures that value honor. From what I've seen, the Klingons fit that description. Diplomacy wrapped in steel, Martok observed. You speak like a politician, but you carry yourself like a soldier. Which are you, O'Neill? Both, O'Neill admitted. I've been a special operations officer, a diplomat when I had to be, and a commander who's made hard decisions. In my universe, Earth doesn't have the luxury of separating military and diplomatic functions. We're outnumbered, outgunned most of the time, and surviving on skill and alliances. Then you understand the Klingon position, Martok said, his tone turning serious. The Empire is strong, but we are surrounded by potential threats. The Romulans scheme at our borders. The Federation expands with their peaceful ideals that sometimes conflict with our warrior nature. The Dominion may be defeated, but their legacy remains. And now a ship appears with weapons that could shift the balance of power in anyone's favor. You're asking where we stand, Carter said, her intelligence officer training reading between the lines. I am asking, Martok said carefully, whether the Klingon Empire should view the Odyssey as a potential ally, a neutral party, or a threat to be eliminated. The bluntness was shocking by Federation standards, but O'Neill didn't flinch. You're asking if we'd side with the Klingons against the Federation. I am asking, Martok corrected, where your loyalties would lie if conflict arose. The Federation and the Empire are allies now, but history is filled with alliances that crumbled. If you are truly from another Earth, then you have no inherent loyalty to the Federation. You could choose your own path. Sisko tensed, recognizing the dangerous political waters they just entered. This was exactly the kind of wedge the Romulans would try to drive, creating suspicion between the Federation and its allies by suggesting SG-1 might be a wildcard. General Martok, Daniel said, surprising everyone by speaking up. In our universe, Earth has fought wars with species that wanted to enslave us, destroy us, or force us to worship them. We've allied with races like the Asgard, who shared our values of freedom and mutual respect. We've learned that survival depends on finding common ground with those who share your principles, not just those who share your species. The Federation, Carter added, has been helping us since we arrived. Captain Sisko could have detained us, confiscated our ship, and tried to reverse engineer our technology. Instead, he's offered hospitality, information, and assistance in finding a way home. That kind of treatment earns loyalty. But not blind loyalty, O'Neill said, meeting Martok's gaze. We'll work with the Federation as long as they work with us. We'll defend ourselves against anyone who attacks us. And we'll make our own decisions about what's right and what's wrong. If that makes us unpredictable, so be it. But we're not anyone's weapon. Martok was silent for a long moment. Then he began to laugh again. That same booming sound that spoke of genuine pleasure. Worf, did I not say these humans would be interesting? They refuse to be controlled by anyone, including us. That is the mark of true warriors. It is also the mark of potential allies, Worf agreed. The Empire values independence and strength. SG-1 has both. Then let me be clear, Martok said, his tone shifting to formal. The Klingon Empire will not move against the Odyssey or its crew. If others attack you and you defend yourselves, the Empire will consider such defense justified. If you choose to ally with the Federation, we will accept that alliance as part of our own treaty obligations. But if you prove to be honorless, if you betray those who help you, or use your power to enslave rather than defend, the Empire will respond with the full weight of our fleet. Fair terms, O'Neill said, extending his hand. Martok looked at the gesture, then grasped O'Neill's forearm in the Klingon manner. The two warriors locked eyes, and an understanding passed between them that needed no translation. Teal'c stood and offered the same gesture to Martok. The Jaffa say, Tekmate, Martok. It means, we are together, Martok. You have honored us with your words and your trust. We will not forget it. And I will not forget a warrior who carries his enemy within and commands it, Martok replied, gripping Teal'c's arm. If you ever tire of serving humans, the Empire would welcome a fighter of your caliber. I serve no one, Teal'c said with quiet dignity. I fight beside O'Neill because he has earned that right, just as you have earned my respect this day. The feast continued, the atmosphere shifting from tense negotiation to genuine camaraderie. Stories were exchanged. tales of battles against the Dominion matched by accounts of warfare against the Goa'uld. Martok listened with fascination as Teal'c described the siege of Dakara, where the Free Jaffa claimed their holiest site from the System Lords. O'Neill recounted the defense of Earth against Anubis's fleet, where a single ancient weapon platform had held off an armada. As the evening wore on and the blood wine flowed, Sisko found himself cautiously optimistic. SG-1 had made a powerful ally in Martok, and through him, potentially the entire Klingon Empire. But he also recognized the double-edged nature of that alliance. If SG-1 ever did become a threat, the Klingons would be among the first to respond with overwhelming force. The meeting was interrupted by Kira's comm badge chirping. "Major, this is Ops. We have an incoming transmission. Priority 1, encrypted Cardassian channels." "Cardassian?" Kira repeated, her expression hardening with old hatreds. "What do they want?" "They're asking to speak with Colonel O'Neill directly," the operations officer reported. "They say they have information about the rift that brought the Odyssey here, and they claim they know how to send them home." Every eye at the table turned to O'Neill. The colonel's expression remained neutral, but Sisko could see the calculation behind his eyes. A way home. That was what SG-1 wanted more than anything. But offers from unknown sources always came with strings attached. "It's a trap," Martok said bluntly. "The Cardassians are snakes without honor. They will promise anything to gain advantage." "Maybe," O'Neill said, "but we have to at least hear what they're offering. If there's even a chance they can help us get home, we have to take it." "Then we do it together," Sisko said firmly. "Whatever the Cardassians want, you're not facing it alone. That's what allies do." O'Neill looked around the table, at Sisko, Martok, Worf, Kira, and his own team. For a moment, the burden of command was visible on his face. Then he nodded. "All right, let's go see what the Cardassians want. But I'm bringing a weapon this time, and if this goes south, I'm not going to be diplomatic about it." "Good," Martok said with approval. "A warrior should always be prepared to back his words with steel." They left the holosuite together, the alliance between Federation, Klingon, and Stargate Command, still fragile but growing stronger. Behind them, the holographic Great Hall faded to darkness, but the bonds forged over blood wine and warriors' tales remained. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Cardassian agents were preparing their next move in a game where the prize was nothing less than the most advanced technology the Alpha Quadrant had ever seen. The Cardassian face on the view screen belonged to Gul Evek, or rather someone claiming to be him. Sisko knew Evek had died during the Dominion War, but Cardassian intelligence often used the identities of deceased officers for deniability. The man's ridged features showed the characteristic Cardassian combination of military precision and political cunning. "Colonel O'Neill," the Cardassian said, his voice smooth and measured. "I am Gul Reebok of the Cardassian Third Order. I apologize for the dramatic timing of this communication, but time is of critical importance. We have information regarding the dimensional rift that brought your vessel to our universe, information that could facilitate your return home." O'Neill stood in ops with his arms crossed, flanked by his team and Sisko's senior staff. Martok had insisted on being present as well, the Klingon general standing like a mountain of barely contained violence. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Gul. What do you want in exchange for this information?" Reebok's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Approval, perhaps, at O'Neill's directness. "The Cardassian Union has suffered greatly in recent years. The war with the Dominion cost us dearly. Our infrastructure is damaged, our military weakened, and our position in the quadrant uncertain. Your vessel possesses technology that could help us rebuild." "You want our weapons," Carter said flatly. "We want an exchange of knowledge," Reebok corrected. "Cardassian science is quite advanced in certain fields, particularly in subspace mechanics and transporter technology. Before the war, we conducted extensive research into dimensional physics. When the rift opened near Deep Space Nine, our monitoring stations detected unique energy signatures that matched theoretical models we developed decades ago." Dax leaned close to Sisko, whispering, "He's telling the truth about the research. Cardassian scientists did groundbreaking work on subspace topology before the Obsidian Order shut down most civilian research programs. The question is," Odo added quietly, "what else is he not telling us?" O'Neill apparently had the same thought. "So you're saying you can send us home? What's stopping you from just doing it? Why make this an exchange?" "Because opening a controlled rift of that magnitude requires enormous power. Reebok explained. Power that the Cardassian Union currently lacks. However, your vessel's Asgard power generation systems could provide that energy if we were given access to study them and perhaps integrate them temporarily with our dimensional rift generators. Temporarily, O'Neill repeated, his skepticism evident. Right. And once we give you access to our power systems, what stops you from keeping them? The fact that such an action would make an enemy of both the Federation and the Klingon Empire, Reebok said smoothly, nodding slightly toward Sisko and Martok. The Cardassian Union is in no position to fight a war on multiple fronts. We are offering a mutually beneficial exchange. Your power generation technology helps us open the rift, and we send you home. Everyone gets what they want. Except you also get detailed scans of our most advanced technology, Carter pointed out. Gul Reebok, I'm a scientist. I know exactly what you're asking for. Access to our power systems means access to Asgard neutrino ion generators, zero-point energy modules, and the underlying physics that make them work. You're not just asking to borrow a battery, you're asking for the keys to technology centuries beyond your current capabilities. Reebok's expression hardened slightly. Major Carter, I will be honest with you since you clearly value directness. Yes, we would learn from your technology. Yes, that knowledge would benefit Cardassia. But we would also be providing you with something invaluable. A way home. Is that not worth the exchange? It might be, Daniel said thoughtfully, removing his glasses to clean them. But there's a bigger question here. If you can open a rift to send us home, what else could you open? Gul Reebok, dimensional rift technology is incredibly dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could destabilize entire regions of space. Dr. Jackson raises a valid concern, Sisko interjected. The Bajorans consider the wormhole sacred because the prophets control it. An artificial rift that could be opened anywhere, anytime? That's a weapon as much as a tool. And you think Cardassia would use it as a weapon, Reebok said, not denying the accusation. Captain Sisko, the Cardassian Union has committed many sins. I will not pretend otherwise. But we are also a broken people trying to rebuild. The Dominion's final act, the genocide on our homeworld, killed 800 million Cardassians in hours. We need technology to survive, not to conquer. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. Even those who had fought against Cardassia during the war couldn't ignore the magnitude of that loss. Kira's expression was conflicted. She had every reason to hate the Cardassians for what they'd done to Bajor, but genocide was genocide. 800 million, Teal'c said quietly, his deep voice carrying the weight of someone who understood atrocity. The Goa'uld committed similar acts against worlds that defied them. Entire populations destroyed as examples. I do not excuse the crimes of Cardassia, but I understand desperation born from such loss. Martok growled low in his throat. Do not let sympathy cloud your judgment. The Cardassians allied with the Dominion willingly. They brought destruction upon themselves. And they paid for it, O'Neill said, his tone thoughtful. Look, I'm not saying we trust them, but if they really can send us home, we'd be stupid not to at least investigate the possibility. Colonel, Sisko said carefully, may I speak with you privately for a moment? O'Neill nodded, and they moved to Sisko's office. Once inside, Sisko turned to face the other man directly. Jack, may I call you Jack? Sure. Jack, I understand the appeal of this offer. A way home. That's what you and your people want more than anything. But you need to understand the political ramifications if you cooperate with Cardassia. The Bajorans will see it as a betrayal. Many Federation worlds lost people to Cardassian aggression, and if the Cardassians use technology derived from your ship to rebuild their military, then we'll have helped create a potential threat, O'Neill finished. I get it, Captain, but you're asking me to choose between getting my people home and protecting a universe that isn't mine. I'm asking you to consider that everything you do here has consequences, Sisko replied. Your Earth fought the Goa'uld. You know what it's like to face an enemy with superior technology. If you give the Cardassians access to Asgard power systems, you might be creating the next Goa'uld, an empire rebuilt on stolen technology that uses it to dominate others. O'Neill was silent for a long moment, staring out the viewport at the Odyssey. In our universe, we made similar decisions. We took technology from defeated Goa'uld. We studied ancient devices we barely understood. We used everything we could get our hands on because the alternative was extinction. Sometimes you have to make hard choices. And sometimes those choices come back to haunt you, Sisko said. Jack, I've been where you are. During the Dominion War, I made decisions that cost lives, good people who trusted me. I authorized weapons development that violated everything Starfleet claimed to stand for. I even once poisoned an entire planet's atmosphere to catch a traitor. I understand the weight of command and the compromises it demands, but I also know that every shortcut has a price. O'Neill met Sisko's eyes and something passed between them. The recognition of two commanders who'd seen too much, done too much, and carried scars that would never fully heal. What would you do if it were you trying to get home? I'd look for another way, Sisko said honestly, but I'm not you, and I can't make this decision for you. I can only tell you that if you work with the Cardassians, the Federation will support you, but there will be consequences. Political fallout, diplomatic complications, and potentially violence from parties who see this as an unacceptable threat. They returned to ops together. Reebok still waited on the view screen, his expression patient. O'Neill took his position at the center of the room, his team gathering around him. Gul Reebok, O'Neill said finally, we're willing to meet with your scientists and review the data you have on the dimensional rift, but we're not committing to anything until we verify your claims. And any exchange of technology will be strictly controlled. No unsupervised access to our systems, no unauthorized scans, and everything happens under Federation and Klingon observation. Reasonable terms, Reebok agreed. We will transmit coordinates for a meeting location, a neutral site where our scientists can present their findings. I suggest a delegation that includes your Major Carter, Captain Sisko's science officer, and any other technical experts you deem necessary. When? Carter asked. 12 hours from now. That should give you time to prepare and arrange transportation. Before O'Neill could respond, alarms shrieked across every console in ops. Dax's hands flew over her station, her face paling. Benjamin, we have multiple subspace ruptures forming throughout the sector. Something's tearing holes in the fabric of space. How many? Sisko demanded. 7. No, 9. They're appearing in a pattern around Deep Space Nine. Captain, these aren't natural phenomena. Someone is deliberately opening rifts. On the view screen, Gul Reebok's expression shifted to one of genuine alarm. Colonel O'Neill, Captain Sisko, I swear the Cardassian Union is not responsible for this. We would never conduct such experiments without... The transmission cut off as every screen in ops filled with static. Then slowly, an image resolved, not from the Cardassians, but from something else entirely. The face that appeared was smooth, pale, and utterly emotionless. Cybernetic implants ran across its skin like veins of metal and wire. When it spoke, the voice was flat, devoid of humanity, carrying the weight of millions speaking as one. We are the Borg. We have detected technology of significant interest aboard the vessel designated Odyssey. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is futile. The screen went dark. Then the sensors showed them, emerging from the rifts like nightmares made real. Borg cubes, massive and geometric, their surfaces crawling with regenerative nanoprobes and adaptive shielding. 9 of them, surrounding Deep Space Nine in a formation designed to prevent escape. Battle stations, Sisko ordered, though he knew with sinking certainty that 9 Borg cubes represented force enough to assimilate the entire sector. Get me Admiral Ross. Get me every ship in range. And somebody tell me how the hell the Borg opened subspace rifts. O'Neill's face had gone pale. Carter, tell me our shields can stop those things. I don't know, sir, Carter admitted, her voice tight with fear. We've never encountered the Borg. Our shields are designed to stop go-old weapons, Ori beams, even Asgard technology. But adaptive technology that learns from every attack? That's completely outside our experience. Then we're about to get a crash course, O'Neill said grimly. He tapped his wrist communicator. Odyssey, this is O'Neill. Full combat alert. Launch all F-302s and charge the plasma beams. We've got incoming hostiles, and they're the assimilating kind. Defend the station at all costs. Through the viewport, the Borg cubes began to move, converging on Deep Space Nine with the inexorable patience of a species that had been assimilating civilizations for millennia. Their tractor beams activated, scanning the Odyssey with particular interest. And somewhere in the collective consciousness of billions of drones, the Borg Queen considered this new prey. Asgard technology, ancient knowledge, a ship from another universe entirely. Such distinctiveness would strengthen the collective significantly. The Borg had come for the Odyssey, and they would not leave without it, or without turning everyone aboard into drones serving the hive mind. The game had just escalated beyond politics and diplomacy into a battle for survival itself. The first Borg cube fired, and reality itself seemed to scream. A crackling green cutting beam lanced through space toward Deep Space Nine's shields, the kind of weapon that had carved through Starfleet defenses at Wolf 359 with contemptuous ease. The station's shields flared bright blue, holding for precious seconds before beginning to buckle under the sustained assault. "Return fire," Sisko commanded. "All weapons, target the lead cube." Phaser arrays erupted from the station's weapons platforms, striking the Borg cube's dark hull. For a moment, the impact seemed effective, scoring the surface, vaporizing sections of hull plating. Then the cube's surface shimmered, the adaptive shielding analyzing the phaser frequency and compensating. The next volley splashed harmlessly against shields that had learned to defend against Federation weapons in seconds. "They've adapted already," Kira reported, frustration evident in her voice. "Rotating phaser frequencies, but it's only buying us seconds at a time." "Odyssey is engaging," Dax called out, her console showing the Earth vessel moving with startling agility for its size. The BC-304 banked hard, its sublight engines far more maneuverable than Federation impulse drives. 4 F-302 fighters screamed past the station, their pilots executing combat maneuvers that would have made any Starfleet Academy instructor weep with envy. Then the Odyssey opened fire with its Asgard plasma beams. The weapons were nothing like phasers or disruptors. Instead of directed energy streams, the plasma beams erupted in brilliant blue-white torrents of superheated matter contained within magnetic fields. They struck the nearest Borg cube like the fist of an angry god, tearing through its adaptive shields as if they weren't there. The cube's surface exploded outward, armor plating vaporizing, internal systems exposed to vacuum. Secondary explosions rippled across the cube's hull as power conduits overloaded. "Direct hit!" O'Brien shouted from his console. "The cube's shields are down 30%. Whatever those plasma beams are made of, the Borg can't adapt fast enough." "They will adapt eventually," Worf warned, his tactical experience with the Borg making him cautious. "The collective learns. We must destroy them quickly before they develop countermeasures." The F-302s dove in behind the Odyssey's attack, their railguns and missiles adding to the assault. Unlike Federation torpedoes, the F-302's weapons were kinetic, physical projectiles that struck with devastating force. One fighter pilot, call sign Jedi, managed to place a missile directly into the breach the Odyssey had created, and the explosion tore the Borg cube apart from the inside. But 8 cubes remained, and they were learning. "The other cubes are modulating their shields," Dax reported. "They're trying to compensate for the plasma weapons. It's working. The next salvo won't be as effective." "Then we make every shot count," O'Neill's voice came through the comm, broadcasting to both the Odyssey and the station. "All fighters, wolf pack formation. Target the cube's weapon arrays. Odyssey will focus plasma beams on their propulsion systems. If we can't destroy them, we slow them down." "Coordinating with Odyssey," Sisko confirmed. "Major Kira, target our quantum torpedoes at the cubes the Odyssey damages. Chief, keep rotating our shield frequencies. Make the Borg work for every adaptation." The USS Defiant undocked from the station, Worf taking command of the warship. The Defiant had been built specifically to fight the Borg after Wolf 359, and it showed in every line of its aggressive design. Pulse phasers hammered at the nearest cube while quantum torpedoes streaked through space, each one calibrated to a different frequency to slow the Borg's adaptation. Then Martok's voice boomed across the comm channel. "Kapla, Captain Sisko, the Romulan comes to your aid. Today is a good day to die." The Klingon bird of prey decloaked directly above one of the Borg cubes, its forward disruptor cannons blazing at point-blank range. The surprise attack caught the Borg momentarily off guard, and the Rotaran's weapons tore deep gouges in the cube's hull before it could adapt. But Klingon ships were built for honor and glory, not prolonged tactical warfare. The cube's tractor beam locked onto the Romulan, beginning to drag the bird of prey closer for assimilation. "Martok is in trouble," Kira said urgently. Carter was already at a secondary tactical station, her mind working through the problem with the speed of someone who'd analyzed alien technology under fire countless times. "Captain Sisko, the Borg tractor beam operates on a graviton frequency we can disrupt. If the Odyssey fires a plasma burst on a specific harmonic, she rattled off numbers that made even Dax blink. It should overload their emitters. Do it, Sisko ordered. The Odyssey pivoted with surprising grace, its plasma beams retargeted. The blue-white energy struck not the cube itself, but the space between the cube and the Rotaran. The tractor beam flickered, destabilized by the interference, and Martok seized the opportunity. The bird of prey's impulse engines flared to full power, ripping free of the beam and spiraling away trailing plasma. Martok to Sisko, your allies from another universe fight with honor. We shall sing songs of this battle, if we survive. But the Borg were adapting faster now. Two cubes changed tactics, ignoring the larger ships to focus their cutting beams on the F-302s. The small fighters were agile, but they were also fragile compared to capital ships. One F-302 took a direct hit, its shields, designed to stop Goa'uld staff weapons, failing instantly. The fighter exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Jedi is down, another pilot reported. These things are targeting our fighters specifically. All F-302s, fall back to the Odyssey's point defense grid, O'Neill ordered, his voice tight with the loss. We'll cover you. Teal'c's voice cut through the chaos. O'Neill, I request permission to beam aboard the nearest cube. The Borg assimilate through physical drones. If we can disrupt their internal systems, we may gain advantage. Absolutely not, O'Neill replied immediately. Teal'c, those things will turn you into one of them. My symbiote provides resistance to foreign organisms, Teal'c countered, and the Borg have never encountered Jaffa physiology. I may be able to gather intelligence on their adaptive algorithms before they overcome my immune system. He has a point, Carter added reluctantly. The Borg adapt to external threats quickly, but internal sabotage might give us the edge we need. And if Teal'c can access their data network, Sisko made a command decision. Teal'c, if you're going, you're not going alone. Worf, return to the station. You're going with him. Acknowledged, Worf said, the Defiant already turning back toward Deep Space Nine. This is insane, O'Neill muttered, but he didn't countermand the order. Fine, but you get 5 minutes inside that thing, then we're beaming you out whether you like it or not. As Worf and Teal'c prepared for their suicidal boarding action, the battle continued to rage. The Odyssey and Deep Space Nine worked in tandem now, their attacks coordinated through Carter's tactical genius and Dax's centuries of strategic experience. Plasma beams carved through Borg armor, while quantum torpedoes struck weak points. The Romulan harried the cubes from unexpected angles, cloaking and decloaking to prevent the Borg from establishing target locks. But it wasn't enough. The Borg were learning, adapting, compensating. Their shields grew stronger against the plasma weapons with each passing minute. Their cutting beams adjusted to slice through the station's defenses more efficiently. And worst of all, one cube was moving toward the Bajoran wormhole itself. They're trying to access the wormhole, Dax said, horror in her voice. If they get through to the Alpha Quadrant, they'll assimilate everything on the other side, Sisko finished grimly. Major, target that cube with everything we have. We cannot let the Borg reach the wormhole. Every weapon on Deep Space Nine concentrated fire on the cube approaching the wormhole. The Odyssey added its plasma beams, overheating the weapons to dangerous levels to maximize damage. Even the Defiant's ablative armor couldn't protect it from sustained fire, as Worf pushed the ship beyond safe limits to intercept. The Borg cube's shields buckled, failed, and its hull began to fragment under the overwhelming assault. But even as it died, its tractor beam reached out one final time. Not toward a ship, but toward the wormhole itself. The Bajoran wormhole opened, its familiar blue-white vortex blooming in space. But something was wrong. The wormhole's edges flickered with green energy, Borg nanoprobes already beginning to infiltrate the structure itself. The prophets, beings who existed outside linear time, suddenly faced an enemy that could adapt to their reality-bending nature. The prophets are fighting back, Kira breathed, her faith warring with her tactical mind. They're rejecting the Borg's intrusion. The wormhole pulsed once, twice, and then something emerged that no one expected. Ships, dozens of them, but not Borg vessels. These were Dominion warships, the familiar insectoid hulls of Jemadar, attack ships, and larger battlecruisers. They poured through the wormhole in a flood of reinforcements, weapons already charged. The Dominion, O'Brien said in disbelief. What the hell are they doing here? The lead Dominion ship broadcast on all frequencies, the voice of a founder, one of the shape-shifting beings who ruled the Dominion, echoing across space. This is the founder. The Borg threatened the wormhole, and therefore threatened the Dominion. We will not permit this incursion. All ships, coordinate fire on the Borg cubes. Sisko and O'Neill exchanged glances across the view screen. Enemy and ally, the line blurred in the face of extinction. Colonel, the Dominion were our enemies 6 months ago. And the Takra started as Goa'uld, O'Neill replied. Enemy of my enemy, Captain. We can sort out the politics later if we survive. Agreed. Sisko opened a channel to the Dominion fleet. This is Captain Benjamin Sisko, coordinating attack pattern Delta 7. Welcome to the fight, Founder. The Dominion ships joined the battle with devastating precision. Polaran beams, weapons specifically designed to penetrate Federation shields, tore into the Borg cubes from new angles. The Borg attempted to adapt, but between Asgard plasma weapons, Federation quantum torpedoes, Klingon disruptors, and Dominion Polaran beams, they faced too many different weapon types, adapting too quickly. 2 more cubes fell, their hulls fragmenting into debris fields. Another lost propulsion and drifted. Easy prey for coordinated strikes. But 5 cubes remained, and they were changing tactics again. Instead of attacking, they began to retreat but not to escape. They were moving into formation, linking their systems together. Energy began to flow between the cubes, their shields merging into a single unified defensive matrix. They're creating a gestalt system, Carter realized with dawning horror, linking their processing power and defenses. Captain, if they complete that formation, we won't be able to penetrate their combined shields. Then we stop them before they finish, Sisko said. But even as every ship in the hastily assembled fleet moved to intercept, a new contact appeared on sensors. It was smaller than the cubes, but far more terrifying. A Borg sphere, sleek and deadly, dropping out of transwarp directly between Deep Space Nine and the Odyssey. And this sphere had only one target, the BC-304 and its Asgard technology. The Borg Queen's voice, cold and seductive, echoed across every frequency. You are different. Your ship is different. We will learn what makes you special, and we will become perfect. Resistance is futile. The sphere's tractor beams locked onto the Odyssey with force that dwarfed anything the cubes had used. The Earthship's engines strained, fighting against the pull, but physics was physics. The Odyssey began to move inexorably toward the sphere and the assimilation that awaited inside. O'Neill's face appeared on the view screen, determination replacing fear. Carter, Daniel, evacuate to Deep Space Nine. That's an order. Sir, Carter began. Now, Major, if they take this ship, I'm not letting them take you too. Sisko, can your transporters reach us through the interference? We can try, O'Brien said, already working the controls. Then do it. Get my people off this ship. And Captain? O'Neill's expression was grim. If you can't stop the Borg from taking the Odyssey, you blow it up. All of it. I'm not letting Asgard technology fall into their hands. Set your weapons to target our reactor core if necessary. It was the order of a commander who understood sacrifice, who knew that some technologies were too dangerous to let fall into enemy hands, even if it meant his own death. But before Sisko could respond, the transporter activated, not Federation technology, but Asgard beaming. Carter, Daniel, and the Odyssey's bridge crew vanished in columns of white light, rematerializing on Deep Space Nine's transporter pad. Only O'Neill remained on the Odyssey's bridge, standing alone as his ship was dragged toward assimilation. And on the station, Teal'c watched through a viewport, his expression carved from stone. Then he turned to Worf. It is time, the Jaffa said. Beam us to the sphere. We end this now, or we die trying. Worf's only response was a fierce Klingon grin. Today is a good day to die. The Asgard transporter beam deposited Teal'c and Worf directly into the interior of the Borg sphere, a calculated risk that bypassed the vessel's shields entirely. They materialized in a nightmare of biomechanical horror. Corridors lined with pulsing conduits that resembled veins more than technology. Alcoves where drones regenerated in silent rows, and the ever-present hum of the Collective's unified consciousness. Teal'c held his staff weapon ready, the Goa'uld technology humming with contained energy. Worf gripped his batleth, the traditional Klingon blade gleaming in the eerie green light. Around them, Borg drones turned with mechanical precision, their cybernetic implants whirring as they registered intruders. "We are Borg. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile." "I have heard such promises before," Teal'c said calmly and fired. The staff weapon's plasma bolt struck the nearest drone square in the chest, sending it crashing backward. But even as it fell, two more advanced, their adaptive shields beginning to analyze the weapon's energy signature. "They adapt quickly," Worf observed, his warrior's instinct reading the tactical situation instantly. "We must move fast." They ran deeper into the sphere, fighting through waves of drones. Teal'c's staff weapon fired again and again, each shot precise and economical. When drones got too close, Worf's batleth sang through the air, the blade finding gaps in their cybernetic armor with brutal efficiency. A severed arm here, a decapitated drone there. The Klingon fought with the savage joy of a warrior in his element. But the Borg were learning. Their shields adapted to the staff weapon's frequency. Their physical responses grew faster, anticipating Worf's strike patterns. And more drones converged from every corridor, an endless tide of assimilation. "Teal'c," Worf said, breathing hard, "we cannot fight them all. We must reach their central node and disrupt their systems from within." "Agreed." Teal'c's tactical implant, a gift from his symbiote's enhanced perception, analyzed the sphere's layout. "The primary power distribution center should be 3 levels down. If we can overload their plasma conduits, it will create a cascade failure." They fought their way to a maintenance shaft, Worf holding the entrance while Teal'c forced it open, with Jaffa's strength enhanced by his symbiote. They dropped through level after level, the sounds of pursuit echoing above them. When they reached the power distribution center, they found themselves in a chamber dominated by a massive cylindrical structure pulsing with green energy, the sphere's main power core. "There," Teal'c said, pointing to control panels that looked like they'd grown from the walls rather than been built. "If I can access their network, I may be able to introduce a cascading feedback loop." "Do it quickly," Worf urged, taking up position at the entrance. "They are coming." Teal'c approached the console and for a moment hesitated. To interface with the Borg meant opening himself to their assimilation protocols, but his symbiote stirred in its pouch, and he felt its ancient strength flowing through him. The Goa'uld symbiote was a parasite, yes, but it was also a shield against other parasites. The nanoprobes might try to assimilate him, but they would have to fight through the symbiote's immune system first. He pressed his hand against the interface. Instantly, tubules shot out, piercing his skin, establishing connection. The Borg Collective flooded into his consciousness. Billions of voices speaking as one, infinite knowledge and terrible unity. For a moment, Teal'c nearly lost himself in that ocean of minds. Then his symbiote fought back. The Goa'uld creature, evolved over millions of years to dominate host bodies, recognized the Borg nanoprobes as a threat and attacked them at the cellular level. Teal'c felt the battle raging inside his own body, nanoprobes attempting to convert his cells, the symbiote destroying them as fast as they spawned. It was agony, but it gave him precious seconds. "We are Borg," the collective intoned through his mind. "Your resistance is noted. You possess biological distinctiveness we have not encountered. Your symbiotic organism is fascinating." "I am Teal'c of Chulak," he said through gritted teeth, his consciousness diving into the Borg network while his body fought for survival. "And I am free." He found what he needed: the sphere's power distribution algorithms, the adaptive shielding protocols, and most importantly, the tractor beam holding the Odyssey. With his symbiote buying him time, Teal'c began to rewrite code, introducing errors that the collective would recognize too late. Meanwhile, on Deep Space Nine, the battle reached a critical point. The 5 remaining Borg cubes had completed their Gestalt formation, their combined shields creating a nearly impenetrable barrier. The Odyssey hung in the sphere's tractor beam, its weapons still firing, but its hull beginning to show stress fractures from the gravitational forces. Carter stood at the tactical station in ops, her mind racing through possibilities. "Captain, the Borg sphere's tractor beam is drawing power directly from the cube's link network. If we can disrupt that network, break their Gestalt formation, the sphere will lose power and release the Odyssey." "How do we break the formation?" Sisko asked. "Their combined shields are stopping everything we throw at them." Daniel Jackson, of all people, provided the answer. He'd been studying the sensor readings with his archaeologist's eye for patterns. "Captain, look at how they're positioned. It's not random, it's geometric. They're forming a platonic solid, a perfect dodecahedron. Ancient cultures use similar patterns in sacred architecture because these shapes have unique harmonic properties. You're saying the Borg are using sacred geometry? Kira asked skeptically. I'm saying they're using mathematical principles that transcend culture, Daniel corrected. If we can identify the harmonic frequency they're using to maintain that formation and hit them with a dissonant wave. Dax's hands were already flying across her console. Daniel's right. The cubes are maintaining formation through a synchronized subspace frequency. It's elegant, almost beautiful. If we can generate a counter frequency, then their formation collapses, Carter finished, understanding dawning. Captain Sisko, the Odyssey has subspace emitters designed to disrupt Ori force fields. If we can coordinate with your deflector array, we might be able to generate the necessary counter frequency. The Odyssey is caught in a tractor beam, O'Brien pointed out. How do we access its systems? O'Neill, who'd been forced to evacuate his ship and now stood helplessly watching it face assimilation, stepped forward. The ship's computer has autonomous defense protocols. If we can send it the right command codes, it'll execute the maneuver without crew input. But we need line-of-sight communication. The Borg jamming is too strong for normal channels. The Defiant, Worf's voice came through the comm, somehow still transmitting from inside the Borg sphere. Captain, I can see a secondary power node. If I destroy it, the jamming will drop for approximately 30 seconds. Worf, what's your status? Sisko demanded. Where's Teal'c? He has interfaced with the Borg network, Worf reported, his voice strained. He is fighting them from within. But Captain, he cannot hold much longer. His symbiote is buying time, but the nanoprobes are adapting. We need to act now. Sisko made his decision. Worf, destroy that node. O'Neill, prepare your command codes. Carter, Dax, coordinate the counter frequency. We're only going to get one shot at this. Inside the sphere, Worf left Teal'c at the console and charged toward the secondary power node Daniel had identified through Teal'c's sensor feed. Dozens of drones moved to intercept, but the Klingon warrior was beyond stopping now. His bat'leth became a whirlwind of death, limbs and heads flying as he carved a path through the collective. He reached the node, a massive crystalline structure pulsing with energy, and without hesitation, drove his bat'leth into its center. The blade, forged in traditional Klingon fires and blessed by Kahless himself, shattered on impact. But so did the node, erupting in a cascade of electrical discharge that threw Worf backward. The jamming dropped. For 30 seconds, the Odyssey's communication systems were clear. O'Neill transmitted the command codes. The Odyssey's computer acknowledged receipt and executed its protocol. The ship's subspace emitters activated, generating a wave of counter-harmonic energy. Deep Space Nine's deflector array amplified it, sending the dissonant frequency straight into the heart of the Borg cube's gestalt formation. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The cube's synchronized frequency shattered, their perfect geometric formation collapsing. Shields flickered and failed as power distribution networks tried to compensate for the sudden loss of synchronization. The tractor beam holding the Odyssey guttered and died. The BC-304 surged forward, its engines roaring to full power. It spun on its axis and fired every plasma beam weapon simultaneously at the sphere, not at its hull, but at the point where the tractor beam emitters had been located. The beams punched through the weakened shields and tore the emitters apart. Teal'c, Worf, get out of there, Sisko ordered. We're beaming you out now. The Asgard transporter locked onto both life signs despite the interference. Teal'c, his hand still embedded in the Borg interface, felt the beam activate. With the last of his strength, he introduced one final command into the collective's network. A simple thought, but one that would echo through the hive mind. I am Teal'c of Chulak, I am free, and you will never assimilate free will. He materialized on Deep Space Nine's transporter pad, collapsing immediately. Borg nanoprobes crawled across his skin, fighting the symbiote for control. Dr. Bashir and his medical team were already there, hyposprays loaded with anti-nanoprobe agents. Worf appeared beside him, battered and bleeding, but alive. The Klingon warrior managed a fierce grin, despite his injuries. Today was a good day. On the main view screen in Ops, the battle reached its conclusion. The 5 Borg cubes, their gestalt formation broken, found themselves facing a united fleet of Federation, Klingon, and Dominion ships. The Odyssey led the assault, its plasma beams carving through cube after cube now that their Adaptive shields had been disrupted by the harmonic attack. The remaining cubes attempted to retreat, but the Dominion fleet showed no mercy. Polaran beams and quantum torpedoes struck in perfect coordination. One by one, the cubes exploded, their debris fields expanding into silent monuments to their defeat. The sphere, damaged by Teal'c's sabotage and Worf's destruction of its power node, tried to escape. But O'Neill was having none of it. Target that sphere. Everything we've got, I want it atomized. The Odyssey, Deep Space Nine, the Defiant, the Rotaran, and a dozen Dominion ships opened fire simultaneously. The sphere's shields lasted perhaps 3 seconds. Then the vessel came apart, its biomechanical structure unable to withstand the overwhelming firepower. The explosion was green and terrible, nanoprobes scattering into space where vacuum would destroy them before they could assimilate anything else. Silence fell across the comm channels. The battle was over. Against impossible odds, they had won. In ops, Sisko allowed himself a moment to breathe. Then he opened a channel to all ships. "This is Captain Sisko. Stand down from red alert. Begin rescue operations for any survivors. And thank you, all of you. Today we proved that unity is stronger than any technology." The founder's voice responded, emotionless, as always, but carrying something that might have been respect. "Captain Sisko, the Dominion will withdraw through the wormhole. We fought together today by necessity, not by choice. Do not mistake this cooperation for friendship." "Understood," Sisko replied, "but today we were allies. Perhaps there's hope for tomorrow." The Dominion fleet disappeared back through the wormhole, and the mysterious passage closed behind them. Martok's voice came through next, filled with battle joy. "Sisko, O'Neill, that was glorious. The Empire will sing songs of this battle for generations. Kapla!" As the various ships began damage control and rescue operations, O'Neill made his way to the medical bay where Teal'c lay on a biobed, Bashir working frantically to purge the remaining nanoprobes. Carter and Daniel stood vigil beside him. "Will he make it?" O'Neill asked quietly. "The symbiote saved his life," Bashir said, wonder in his voice. "It recognized the nanoprobes as a threat and mounted an immune response I've never seen before. He'll recover." But it was close. Another minute in that interface, and not even the symbiote could have saved him. Teal'c's eyes opened, focusing on O'Neill. "Did we succeed?" "Yeah, buddy," O'Neill said, his voice rough with emotion he rarely showed. "We kicked their asses. The Borg are gone, the Odyssey is safe, and you're a certified badass. Now get some rest." "Indeed," Teal'c said, and closed his eyes. Outside the medical bay, Sisko found O'Neill staring out at the debris field that had once been 9 Borg cubes and a sphere. "Colonel, your ship and your people fought with incredible courage today. You saved not just Deep Space Nine, but potentially the entire Alpha Quadrant." "We did what needed to be done," O'Neill replied. "But Captain, this doesn't solve our problem. We're still trapped here, and now every power in your galaxy knows exactly what the Odyssey can do. That Cardassian offer is starting to look a lot more appealing. Or a lot more dangerous," Sisko cautioned. "The Borg attack wasn't random. Someone opened those subspace rifts deliberately. Someone brought the Borg here targeting your ship specifically." O'Neill's expression hardened. "You're saying we were set up?" "I'm saying that whoever opened those rifts knew about your technology and wanted either you destroyed or the Borg to acquire it. The Cardassians claimed they could open controlled rifts. What if this was a demonstration of their capabilities and a warning?" Before O'Neill could respond, alarm sounded again, but different this time, not battle alerts but proximity warnings. A single ship was approaching Deep Space Nine, broadcasting on all frequencies. It was Romulan, and the message was simple. "Captain Sisko, Colonel O'Neill, we believe we know who orchestrated the Borg attack, and we have proof that will interest you both greatly. We propose a meeting to discuss mutual concerns." The game, it seemed, was far from over. The Borg had been defeated, but the true enemy, the one who had weaponized them, remained hidden in the shadows. And somewhere, Gul Revak of the Cardassian Third Order watched the battle's aftermath and smiled. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The Romulan delegation materialized in Deep Space Nine's wardroom with characteristic precision. No fanfare, no ceremony, just the shimmer of transporter beams, and suddenly 3 Romulans stood where empty space had been moments before. Commander Teal'c led them, flanked by a Tal Shiar agent whose name went unspoken, and a Romulan scientist carrying a data module. Sisko, O'Neill, Carter, Dax, and Odo waited on the Federation side of the table. Martok had insisted on attending as well, the Klingon general's presence a reminder that this meeting included multiple parties with their own agendas. The atmosphere was tense enough to cut with a knife. "Commander Teal'c," Sisko said carefully, "you claim to have information about who orchestrated the Borg attack. We're listening." Teal'c gestured to the scientist, who activated the data module. A holographic display materialized above the table, showing sensor logs, subspace signatures, and communication intercepts. 3 days before the Odyssey arrived in our universe, Teal'c began, the Teal'c detected unusual subspace activity near the Bajoran wormhole. Someone was conducting experiments with dimensional rift technology, specifically attempting to create artificial wormholes. The hologram shifted to show a Cardassian facility hidden in an asteroid field. "This is Research Station Empresa, located in the former demilitarized zone. According to our intelligence, it is operated by a faction within the Cardassian Third Order, specifically Gulravak's Personal Research Division." O'Neill leaned forward, his expression darkening. "The same Reebok who contacted us claiming he could send us home." "Indeed," Teal'c confirmed. "The Teal'c has been monitoring Reebok for months. He is not officially sanctioned by the Cardassian civilian government. In fact, he operates with considerable autonomy, a remnant of the old Cardassian military structure that refuses to accept their empire's fall from power." The hologram showed energy signatures, mathematical models, and dimensional equations that made even Dax's centuries of experience seem inadequate. Reebok's research focused on creating controlled dimensional rifts, the Romulan scientist explained, not for exploration or travel, but as weapons. The theory was simple: open rifts into hostile, alternate realities and let the inhabitants deal with whatever emerge. "Like the Borg," Carter said, understanding clicking into place. "He didn't bring the Borg here deliberately. He opened rifts randomly until something dangerous came through, knowing it would target the Odyssey's advanced technology." "Precisely," Teal'c said. "Reebok's plan was elegant in its cruelty. Either the Borg would destroy the Odyssey, eliminating a technological threat to Cardassian interests, or the Odyssey would defeat the Borg, demonstrating its capabilities so thoroughly that Reebok could justify demanding access to your technology in exchange for sending you home. It was a win-win scenario for him," Odo observed, his shapeshifter's instinct for deception, recognizing a master manipulator. "If we survived, we'd be desperate enough to accept his offer. If we didn't survive, he could claim he tried to help, but circumstances prevented it." O'Neill's hands clenched into fists on the table. "That son of a bitch killed one of my pilots. Jedi died out there because some Cardassian wanted to run a field test on my ship." "Your pilot was not the only casualty," Martok rumbled, his voice carrying barely suppressed rage. "Klingon warriors died fighting those cubes. Dominion soldiers died. Federation officers. All for Cardassian ambition, disguised as cooperation. Which brings us to why the Romulan Star Empire is sharing this information," Sisko said, his command mask firmly in place despite the anger simmering beneath. "Commander, the Teal'c doesn't do anything without expecting something in return. What do you want?" Teal'c's expression became deadly serious. "We want Reebok stopped. His dimensional rift technology is too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Today it was the Borg. Tomorrow it could be something worse. Entities from realities so hostile that even the collective would flee from them. The Romulan Empire believes such technology threatens all civilizations in this quadrant. So destroy the facility," O'Neill said bluntly. "You've got warbirds, blow it up and call it a day." "It's not that simple," the Teal'c agent spoke for the first time, her voice like ice. "Reebok has distributed his research across multiple locations. Destroying one facility would only delay him. Additionally, he has political protection from hardline factions within what remains of the Cardassian military. A unilateral Romulan strike would be seen as an act of war against Cardassia, and the Federation treaty obligations would force them to respond. So you need us to take him down, Carter said, seeing the strategy. An Earth ship from another universe has no political obligations to Cardassia. If the Odyssey destroys Reebok's facilities, it's not an act of war. It's self-defense against the person who tried to kill us. The Major thinks tactically, Teal'c said with something approaching approval. Yes, that is precisely what we propose. A joint operation. Starfleet provides intelligence and tactical support. The Odyssey provides the military force, and the Romulan Empire ensures that no other powers interfere. We all benefit from Reebok's removal. Sisko exchanged glances with his staff. Dax's expression was thoughtful, weighing the political implications. Odo looked deeply suspicious. Trusting Romulans went against every instinct he had. Martok simply looked eager for another battle, particularly one with clear enemies and justified violence. "There's one problem," Daniel Jackson said quietly from where he'd been listening. Everyone turned to look at him. If Reebok really has distributed his research, then destroying his facilities doesn't eliminate the knowledge. Somewhere that information still exists. And if dimensional rift technology is as valuable as you say, someone else will try to recreate it. Dr. Jackson raises a valid point, the Romulan scientist admitted. The knowledge cannot be unlearned, but we can eliminate the practical applications, the equipment, the power sources, the specific modifications necessary to make the theory functional. Without those, the research becomes theoretical curiosity rather than active threat. O'Neill stood, pacing to the viewport where the Odyssey hung in space, its hull showing scorch marks from the Borg battle. "Let me get this straight. You want us to assault multiple Cardassian facilities, potentially killing Cardassian personnel, based on intelligence provided by the Romulans, who we all know are not exactly famous for their honesty, to destroy technology that might already be copied elsewhere. Does that about sum it up?" "Yes," Teal'c said simply, "though I would add one detail. If you refuse, the Romulan Empire will be forced to take unilateral action regardless of political consequences. We cannot allow dimensional rift technology to proliferate. The risk is simply too great." "That's a threat," Sisko said flatly. "That is reality, Captain," Teal'c replied. "The Romulan Star Empire has survived for millennia by recognizing existential threats and eliminating them before they metastasize. Reebok represents such a threat. He will be stopped. The only question is whether it happens with your cooperation or without it." Martok laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "At least the Romulan is honest about his dishonesty. I respect that more than pretty words hiding ugly intentions. O'Neill, what say you? Will you take vengeance for your fallen pilot?" O'Neill looked at Sisko. "Captain, this is your universe, your politics. What do you think?" Sisko was quiet for a long moment, weighing his duty to Starfleet, his responsibility to the Alpha Quadrant, and his growing respect for the people from another Earth who'd fought beside him. "I think," he said slowly, "that dimensional rift technology is indeed too dangerous to leave in Reebok's hands. I think that what he did, deliberately drawing the Borg here, was an act of terrorism that cost innocent lives. And I think that sometimes the right thing to do isn't the politically convenient thing." He turned to face Teal'c directly. "The Federation will support this operation, but there are conditions. First, no Romulan ships participate directly in the assault. This needs to be clearly an Earth Starfleet action, not a Romulan strike. Second, any Cardassian personnel we encounter will be given the opportunity to surrender. We're not executing prisoners. Third, all research data we recover will be shared among Federation, Klingon, and Romulan scientists for analysis, and then destroyed. No one gets to keep this technology. The second condition is acceptable," Teal'c said. "The third is problematic. The Teal'c will want to study the technology to develop countermeasures. Then the Teal'c can go to hell," O'Neill said bluntly. "Captain Sisko's conditions are reasonable. You get what you want. Reebok stopped and his facilities destroyed. We get what we want. Justice for the people who died and insurance that this technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And the wrong hands include everyone, because nobody should have the power to tear holes between realities on a whim." The Romulan scientists spoke quietly to Teal'c in their native language. The conversation was brief and tense, but finally Teal'c nodded. "Very well. The Romulan Empire accepts your conditions. We will provide complete intelligence on Reebok's facilities, including defensive capabilities and personnel manifests. The Teal'c will maintain a perimeter to prevent interference from other parties, but will not engage directly unless attacked, and the research data will be destroyed after analysis." "Then we have an agreement," Sisko said, though the words felt like ash in his mouth. Dealing with Romulans always left him feeling like he needed a shower. The meeting adjourned, and the Romulans transported out. As soon as they were gone, O'Neill turned to Sisko. "You know this is a trap, right? Some kind of elaborate Romulan scheme to get us to do their dirty work while they profit somehow." "Almost certainly," Sisko agreed. But that doesn't change the fact that Reebok needs to be stopped. The intelligence Teal'c provided checks out. Dax is already verifying it against our own sensor logs. Reebok really did open those rifts. He really did bring the Borg here. And he needs to pay for it, Martok added, his voice carrying the weight of Klingon justice. The Empire will provide ships for this operation. Reebok has dishonored himself. He must face Warrior's judgment. Carter pulled up the tactical data the Romulans had provided, her mind already analyzing attack vectors and defensive scenarios. Sir, according to this intelligence, Reebok has 3 primary facilities: the main research station in the asteroid field, a backup facility on an uninhabited moon, and a prototype dimensional rift generator on a mobile platform, essentially a modified Cardassian freighter. So we hit all 3 simultaneously, O'Neill said, his tone shifting into mission planning mode. Split our forces, coordinate the strikes, and take them all down before Reebok can evacuate his data or activate any surprises he's got waiting. The Odyssey can handle the main station, Carter continued. It's the most heavily defended, but our Asgard shields and plasma weapons give us the edge. The Defiant and Rotaran can take the backup facility. It's smaller, but still well armed. That leaves the mobile platform. I'll take a runabout and a team to board the freighter, Sisko decided. Odo, Worf when he's recovered, and whoever else volunteers. We secure the prototype rift generator intact if possible. It might give us insights into how to prevent this technology from being recreated. And Reebok himself, Daniel asked? If we're doing this, we need to make sure he doesn't just disappear and start over somewhere else. Odo's expression turned predatory, as much as a shapeshifter's face could show such emotion. Leave that to me. I've tracked down criminals across the quadrant. One Cardassian scientist won't escape justice. The plan came together over the next several hours. Ships were refueled, weapons were charged, and crews prepared for combat. Teal'c, recovered from his ordeal with the Borg nanoprobes, insisted on joining the Odyssey's assault team despite Bashir's protests. I have faced false gods and defeated them, the Jaffa said simply. I will not hide while others fight the battle I helped start. As the combined fleet prepared to depart, Sisko received a private communication from Admiral Ross. The Admiral's face was grave. Benjamin, what you're about to do could have serious political repercussions. Attacking Cardassian facilities, even rogue ones, sets a dangerous precedent. I know, sir, Sisko replied, but Reebok nearly got us all assimilated by the Borg. If we don't stop him now, he'll try again with something worse. The risk of inaction outweighs the risk of political fallout. Ross was silent for a moment. Officially, Starfleet cannot sanction this operation. Unofficially, make sure you succeed, Benjamin. Make sure Reebok doesn't get a chance to defend himself in a court where he might gain sympathy as a Cardassian victim of Federation aggression. Sometimes the cleanest solution is the only solution. The implication was clear, and it made Sisko's stomach turn, but he understood the calculus. Understood, Admiral. Sisko out. The fleet assembled, the Odyssey, the Defiant, the Rotaran, and Sisko's runabout. In the distance, cloaked Romulan warbirds maintained their promised perimeter, and somewhere ahead, Reebok waited in his facility, unaware that his carefully constructed plans were about to collapse around him. O'Neill's voice came through the comm. All ships, this is Odyssey Actual. Mission parameters are clear. Disable the facilities, secure the personnel, destroy the technology. And if anyone gets a shot at Reebok, take it, for Jedi and everyone else who died because of his ambitions. Let's bring some Old West justice to this son of a bitch. Kapla! Martok roared. Engage! Sisko ordered. The ships jumped to warp, streaking toward their targets. The final confrontation with Reebok had begun, and one way or another, the threat of dimensional rift weapons would end today. But in the depths of space, on that modified Cardassian freighter carrying the prototype rift generator, Reebok stood before his creation and smiled. Everything was proceeding exactly as he'd calculated. The Romulans thought they were using him. The Federation thought they were stopping him. O'Neill thought he was getting revenge. None of them understood that they were all pieces in a game whose rules Reebok had written long ago. He activated the prototype, and the freighter's engines hummed to life, not running away, moving into position, because the dimensional rift generator wasn't just a weapon or a transportation device, it was a doorway, and Reebok was about to open it to something that would make the Borg look like a minor inconvenience. Come then, Reebok whispered to the approaching fleet. Come and see what true power looks like. Come and learn why Cardassia will rise again, stronger than ever before. The rift began to open, and reality screamed. The dimensional rift tore open in front of the Cardassian freighter, like a wound in the fabric of space itself. But this wasn't the clean, blue-white vortex of the Bajoran wormhole, or even the chaotic energy of the rifts that had brought the Borg. This was something far worse, a pulsing, hemorrhaging tear that bled colors the human eye wasn't designed to perceive, accompanied by a sound that registered not in ears, but directly in the hindbrain, triggering primal terror. What the hell is that? O'Neill demanded from the Odyssey's bridge as sensors went haywire trying to analyze the phenomenon. Carter's voice was tight with fear she rarely showed. Sir, the energy readings are off the scale. That's not just a dimensional rift, it's a cascading rupture. Reebok isn't opening a controlled doorway. He's ripping a hole between realities large enough to... Oh, God. Something emerged from the rift. It was vast beyond comprehension, a ship, if it could be called that dwarfed even Borg cubes. Its hull was organic, writhing with what looked like muscle tissue and exposed bone, covered in eyes that blinked independently, and weapons that resembled nothing in any species database. The biomechanical horror moved with predatory intelligence, and when it broadcast, the transmission came not through subspace but directly into every mind on every ship simultaneously. We are the Wraith. We have hungered in the darkness between realities. Now we feed. On Deep Space Nine, where the transmission reached even back to the station, Dax's face went pale. Benjamin, I'm reading biometric signatures from that ship. There are thousands of life forms aboard, but they're not separate entities. They're all connected, like the Borg, but hungrier, and the ship itself is alive. It's not carrying weapons. It is a weapon. Sisko was already moving, pulling up tactical data. Get me the fleet, now! But the Wraith Hive ship wasn't interested in waiting for strategic coordination. Organic weapons ports opened across its hull, and beams of energy that looked like concentrated life force itself lanced out toward the Odyssey. The BC-304's Asgard shields flared, holding against the initial assault, but Carter's sensors showed something terrifying. The shields are degrading faster than they should, she reported. These weapons aren't just energy. They're draining power directly from our systems. It's like they're feeding on our technology. O'Neill's jaw set in grim determination. Then we don't give them a chance to drain us dry. All forward plasma beams, maximum yield. Hit that thing with everything we've got. The Odyssey's weapons erupted in brilliant blue-white fury, plasma beams tearing across space to strike the Wraith Hive ship. The organic armor exploded under the assault, great chunks of biomechanical tissue vaporizing. But even as the Odyssey's weapons carved wounds in the Hive ship's hull, those wounds began to regenerate. Flesh knitted itself back together, bones reformed, and within seconds the damage was reduced to superficial scarring. It's healing, Teal'c observed with the calm of someone who'd faced impossible odds before. O'Neill, I have encountered similar regenerative capabilities in certain Goa'uld experiments. Concentrated fire on a single point may overwhelm its healing factor. Do it, O'Neill ordered. Carter, coordinate with Deep Space Nine and the Defiant. Focus all firepower on the Hive ship's forward section. We're going to punch a hole so deep it can't heal fast enough. The Defiant screamed into battle range, Worf's tactical genius evident in every maneuver. Quantum torpedoes streaked toward the Hive ship in carefully timed volleys, each explosion overlapping the last to prevent regeneration. The Rotaran added its disruptors, Martok's battle cry echoing across the comm channels as Klingon warriors embraced the glory of combat against an enemy worthy of song. Sisko's runabout raced toward the Cardassian freighter, where Gul Reebok stood at the controls of his prototype rift generator. Through the viewport, Sisko could see the Cardassian's face. Not afraid, but exultant. The madness in Reebok's eyes was clear even at this distance. Reebok, Sisko transmitted. Shut down the rift generator now. You've unleashed something you can't control. Reebok's response was laughter, wild and unhinged. Can't control? Captain Sisko, you misunderstand everything. The Wraith were the point. Cardassia needs more than weapons. We need a force so terrible that every power in the quadrant will beg us for protection. The Wraith will devastate worlds, and only Cardassian rift technology can stop them. We will rise from the ashes of defeat as the galaxy's saviors. He's insane, Odo said from beside Sisko. The Wraith aren't going to stop at devastation. They'll consume everything, including Cardassia. Then we stop them both, Sisko said grimly. Odo, prepare a boarding party. We're taking that freighter. But the Wraith hive ship had other plans. Secondary weapons ports opened, and instead of energy beams, swarms of dart-shaped organic fighters launched from the hive ship's interior. Hundreds of them, each the size of a runabout but far more agile, screaming through space with predatory purpose. The Odyssey's F-302 squadron engaged immediately, the human pilots executing combat maneuvers against enemies that flew like living things rather than mechanical craft. Energy bolts and missiles crossed in deadly ballet as fighters from two universes clashed above a third reality's battlefield. Sir, the darts are targeting our hull directly, one F-302 pilot reported. They're trying to... Jesus, they just beamed the pilot out of Fighter 7. The dart scooped him right out of his cockpit. They're culling, Daniel realized with horror, pulling up references from the ancient database the Odyssey had acquired. The Wraith feed on humans. They use those darts to collect prey. Everyone on our ships were all just food to them. The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly. The combined firepower of the Odyssey, Defiant, and Romulan was inflicting serious damage on the hive ship, but it was healing almost as fast as they could hurt it. The Wraith darts were overwhelming the F-302 squadron through sheer numbers, and more contacts were appearing on sensors. Wraith were beaming directly onto the Odyssey's hull, beginning to cut through the armor plating to reach the crew inside. In the Odyssey's corridors, security teams found themselves fighting biomechanical creatures that were part human, part monster. The Wraith warriors moved with supernatural speed, their feeding hands capable of draining a human's life force in seconds, leaving behind desiccated husks. Bullets and staff weapons hurt them, but they kept coming, driven by hunger that transcended rational fear. Teal'c found himself face to face with a Wraith commander, taller than the others, with long white hair and a face that might once have been handsome before becoming something alien. The Wraith's feeding hand reached for the Jaffa, but Teal'c's staff weapon fired point blank, the plasma bolt tearing through the creature's chest. The Wraith staggered but didn't fall. It looked at Teal'c with genuine curiosity. You are different. Your life force has two signatures. What are you? I am free, Teal'c replied and fired again. This time the Wraith fell, but Teal'c knew they'd barely scratched the surface of the threat. There were thousands more on the hive ship. On the runabout, Sisko and his team boarded the Cardassian freighter through a forced docking maneuver. They fought through minimal resistance. Reebok had apparently committed most of his security forces to defending his other facilities, never imagining the primary threat would come to him directly. They found Reebok in the freighter's command center, standing before the prototype rift generator like a priest before an altar. The device hummed with barely contained power, dimensional energies swirling within crystalline matrices that looked half-grown rather than built. Reebok, step away from the controls, Sisko ordered, phaser raised. Or what, Captain? Reebok asked, not turning around. You'll shoot me? Go ahead. The rift is already open. The Wraith are already here. Killing me changes nothing. But shutting down the generator does, Worf said, moving to flank Reebok from the other side. If we close the rift, the Wraith lose their reinforcements. Close it. Reebok laughed again. Captain Sisko, you still don't understand. The generator doesn't close rifts. It only opens them. Once opened, a dimensional tear remains until the energies equalize naturally. A process that takes weeks, perhaps months. The Wraith have all that time to bring their entire fleet through. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. This wasn't just one hive ship. This was a potential invasion from an entire reality of predatory aliens who fed on sentient life. Odo shapeshifted into liquid form, flowing across the deck plates and reforming behind Reebok before the Cardassian could react. The shapeshifter's arms solidified into restraints around Reebok's body. Then you'll help us stop them, or I'll make you regret every decision that brought you to this moment. Reebok struggled futilely against Odo's grip. There's no stopping them, don't you see? This was necessary. Cardassia needed nothing that justified this. Sisko interrupted, his voice cold with fury. You didn't save your people. You condemned the entire quadrant to a war of extinction. An alert sounded on the freighter's console. More Wraith signals were approaching the rift from the other side. Reinforcements were coming. Carter's voice crackled across Sisko's comm badge. Captain, The Wraith hive ship is adapting to our plasma weapons. Its organic hull is developing resistance. We need a new strategy, and we need it now. Sisko looked at the rift generator, his mind racing through possibilities. Then an idea formed. Dangerous. Possibly suicidal. But it was all they had. Major Carter, how much power would it take to destabilize the rift? Make it collapse prematurely? There was a pause while Carter ran calculations. More than we have available, sir. Unless... Wait. The rift generator is still drawing power to maintain the opening. If we could overload the generator while simultaneously hitting the rift with a massive energy pulse, the feedback might create a cascade collapse, destroying everything nearby, Dax added over the channel, understanding where this was going. Benjamin, that includes the freighter, the rift generator, and any ships too close to the blast radius. And potentially the Wraith hive ship if we can lure it close enough to the rift, Sisko finished. Colonel O'Neill, how do you feel about using your ship as bait? O'Neill's response was immediate. If it stops those things from eating everyone in your galaxy, hell yes. But we're going to need one hell of an extraction plan. I'm not sacrificing my people unless there's a way out. The Asgard transporter, Carter said, her scientific mind already solving the problem. If we can establish transport locks on all personnel, we can beam everyone off simultaneously at the last second. It's risky. The dimensional interference will make targeting difficult, but it's possible. Daniel's voice joined the conversation, carrying the weight of someone who'd studied ancient history and knew the cost of such decisions. We're talking about collapsing a dimensional rift with a ship still partially through it. The Wraith on the hive ship won't have time to escape. We'll be killing thousands of them. They would do the same to us without hesitation, Martok growled. This is war, Dr. Jackson. In war, warriors make hard choices. But we're not warriors, Daniel countered. We're explorers, scientists, people who will all be dead if we don't act, O'Neill interrupted, his tone making it clear the debate was over. Daniel, I don't like it either. But Carter's right. This is the only play we have. We either collapse that rift with the Wraith inside, or we watch them pour through and consume this entire reality. The plan came together quickly, born of desperation and necessity. The Odyssey would maneuver close to the dimensional rift, drawing the Wraith hive ship in pursuit. The Defiant and Rataran would maintain covering fire, keeping the Wraith darts occupied. Sisko's team would overload the rift generator on the freighter, timing it to coincide with the Odyssey's final attack. And when the rift collapsed, everyone would have exactly 3 seconds to beam to safety before the dimensional implosion consumed everything within a 100-kilometer radius. All hands, O'Neill broadcast to his crew. This is the Colonel. We're about to do something monumentally stupid and incredibly dangerous. If you've got anything you need to say to someone, say it now. Otherwise, strap in and prepare for emergency transport. It's been an honor serving with you. The Odyssey turned, its engines burning at maximum as it raced toward the dimensional rift. The Wraith hive ship, recognizing prey attempting to flee, pursued with savage hunger. Its weapons tore at the Odyssey's shields, organic projectiles splashing against Asgard technology as the two ships closed on the rift. On the freighter, Sisko's fingers flew across the rift generator's controls, inputting the overload sequence Carter had transmitted. Beside him, Reebok watched with something approaching admiration. You're going to destroy years of research, technology that could have saved millions. Or killed billions, Sisko countered. This ends now, Reebok, for Cardassia's sake as much as anyone else's. The Odyssey reached the rift with the Wraith hive ship less than 5 kilometers behind. O'Neill's voice was calm despite the insanity of what they were attempting. Carter, tell me you've got transport locks on everyone. Confirmed, sir. All personnel tagged. Asgard transporter standing by. Then let's finish this. All weapons, full power to forward plasma beams. Target the rift's event horizon. Fire on my mark. The Odyssey's weapons charged, energy building to levels that made the hull groan in protest. The Wraith hive ship loomed behind them, close enough now that its shadow fell across the Earthship's hull. On the freighter, the rift generator's overload sequence reached critical levels. 3, O'Neill counted down. 2, 1, mark! Everything happened at once. The Odyssey fired every weapon simultaneously into the dimensional rift's event horizon. The freighter's generator exploded in a cascade of dimensional energy. The Wraith hive ship, caught between the two energy sources, found itself being pulled into a collapsing rift it couldn't escape. And in that instant before the implosion, the Asgard transporter activated. White light enveloped every person on the Odyssey, the freighter, the Defiant, and the Rotaran. They dematerialized just as reality itself screamed in agony. The dimensional rift collapsed with force that registered on sensors across the Alpha Quadrant. The Wraith hive ship, caught in the implosion, was torn apart at the molecular level and dragged back into its own reality. The freighter disintegrated. Even the Odyssey, which had managed to put some distance between itself and the blast, took catastrophic damage. Its hull breached in a dozen places, systems failing, adrift in space. But the crews were safe. They materialized on Deep Space Nine's transporter pads, dazed and shaken but alive. O'Neill collapsed to his knees, the adrenaline finally giving way to exhaustion. Carter was beside him immediately, checking him for injuries he hadn't noticed in the heat of battle. "Status report," O'Neill managed after catching his breath. "The rift is closed, sir," Carter reported, her voice unsteady. "The Wraith hive ship is gone. The freighter is destroyed. And the Odyssey is—" She trailed off, unable to finish. "Dead in space," Sisko completed, studying the sensor readings. "But she did her job, Colonel. The threat is ended." On the main view screen in Ops, they watched as the Odyssey drifted, powerless but not destroyed. The ship that had traveled between universes, fought the Borg and the Wraith, and ultimately saved an entire quadrant, floated silent against the stars. Reebok, restrained by Odo, stared at the screen with hollow eyes. "I was trying to save my people," he whispered. "Cardassian needs to be strong again." "Cardassian needs to heal," Kira said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of someone who understood both occupation and liberation. Not through weapons or conquest, but through accepting what was lost and building something better. That's the lesson Bajor learned. It's the lesson you refuse to see. In the aftermath, as damage reports came in and casualties were tallied, the full scope of what had happened became clear. They had won, but the cost was significant. Lives lost, ships damaged, and an Earth vessel from another universe now trapped permanently in this reality with no power to reach home. O'Neill stood at a viewport, looking at his dying ship. Sisko joined him, two commanders who'd been through hell together. "I'm sorry about the Odyssey," Sisko said quietly. "She gave her life saving this galaxy," O'Neill replied. "That's more than most ships can say. But Captain, my people and I, we're stuck here now. Even if we could repair the Odyssey, we don't have the means to open a controlled rift home. We're refugees in your universe." "Then we'll make room for you," Sisko said. "The Federation has experience integrating people from different worlds. An alternate Earth won't be the strangest thing we've encountered. Besides," Martok's voice boomed as the Klingon general approached, "you have proven yourselves warriors of honor. The Empire would welcome SG-1 and the crew of the Odyssey as allies, perhaps even as brothers." Teal'c, his wounds from the Borg encounter and the battle with the Wraith finally treated, joined them. "We have faced slavery, false gods, and enemies who sought to consume all life. We have survived through strength, wisdom, and the bonds we forged with others. If we must remain in this universe, we will make it our home and defend it as we defended our own." Daniel and Carter stood together, processing what this meant. Another universe, another set of challenges, but also opportunities. The Federation's vast knowledge, the Klingon warrior culture, the mysteries of the Bajoran wormhole and the prophets, all of it waiting to be explored and understood. "So what happens now?" Daniel asked, the question hanging in the air. Sisko smiled slightly, the first genuine expression of hope since this crisis began. Now we rebuild. The Odyssey can be repaired. It'll take months, maybe years, but we have the resources and the expertise. SG-1, you've proven yourselves more than capable. Starfleet will want to debrief you, the Klingons will want to drink with you, and I suspect half the Federation's scientific community will want to study your technology. And we'll figure out how to adapt," Carter said, her scientific curiosity already overcoming her grief at being stranded. "We've done it before. We can do it again." O'Neill looked around at the people who'd fought beside them, Federation officers, Klingon warriors, even grudging respect from the Romulans who'd helped orchestrate Reebok's downfall. Different species, different philosophies, but united by common threats and shared values. "All right," he said finally, "we're in. The United States Air Force is officially establishing diplomatic relations with the United Federation of Planets. God help you all. Somewhere in the station, alarms continued to sound as repair teams worked. Somewhere in space, the Odyssey drifted, wounded but not defeated. And somewhere in the vastness of the universe, other threats waited. The Borg would return eventually, the Dominion might rise again, and the Romulans would always scheme. But today, against impossible odds, two Earths had stood together. They had faced extinction and emerged victorious. They had proven that courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to stand for what's right transcended universes. The game was over. The battle was won. And a new alliance had been forged that would shape the future of the Alpha Quadrant for generations to come. 3 months after the dimensional rift closed, Captain Benjamin Sisko stood on the repaired observation deck of Deep Space Nine, watching the Odyssey undergo final repairs. The BC-304 would never be quite the same. Starfleet engineers had integrated Federation technology where Asgard systems were beyond repair, creating a hybrid vessel that represented the best of two universes. It would fly again, but it would never go home. Colonel Jack O'Neill joined him at the viewport, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Replicated, not the real thing O'Neill preferred, but close enough. They stood in comfortable silence, the kind that forms between people who've faced death together and survived. Penny for your thoughts, O'Neill said, the old Earth expression familiar to both men despite their different realities. I'm thinking about how much has changed, Sisko admitted. When you arrived, I saw you as a complication, a powerful unknown that could destabilize everything we'd built. Now, you're one of the most trusted allies we have. The Klingons sing songs about Teal'c's battle with the Borg. Major Carter's joint research with Starfleet science has advanced our understanding of dimensional physics by decades. Even Dr. Jackson has found a place, working with Bajoran scholars to compare ancient mythology with the prophet's influence on culture. And we've found something we never expected, O'Neill said quietly, a second chance. In our universe, we were always fighting, always one disaster away from extinction. Here we've got allies, resources, and maybe for the first time since we stepped through the Stargate, we've got hope. Through the viewport, the Odyssey's hull gleamed with fresh repairs. Federation shield emitters supplemented Asgard technology. Quantum torpedo launchers sat alongside plasma beam weapons. It was a ship caught between worlds, just like its crew, but stronger for it. Reebok's trial concluded yesterday, Sisko said, changing subjects. The Federation tribunal found him guilty of crimes against sentient life. He'll spend the rest of his days in a rehabilitation colony, forced to contemplate the billions he nearly condemned to death. Too good for him, O'Neill muttered, though without real heat. But I get it. Your Federation doesn't execute prisoners. Different rules, different universe. Different doesn't mean wrong, Sisko pointed out, just as your pragmatic approach to threats doesn't make you barbarians. We've learned from each other, Jack. The Federation is reconsidering its stance on dimensional rift research. Not to weaponize it, but to understand it well enough to prevent another Reebok. And Starfleet Command is seriously discussing adopting some of your tactical doctrines for rapid response situations. While we're learning that not every problem requires a military solution, O'Neill acknowledged. Daniel's been insufferable about it, but he's right. Your diplomatic approach has resolved conflicts we'd have fought wars over. There's value in talking before shooting. The door opened, and the rest of their respective teams entered. Carter, Daniel, and Teal'c joined O'Neill, while Dax, Kira, and Worf stood with Sisko. 2 teams that had become one extended family, bound by shared sacrifice and mutual respect. The Federation Council just approved our request, Carter announced, unable to contain her excitement. We're officially establishing the Dimensional Research Institute, a joint Earth Federation Klingon facility dedicated to studying cross-universal phenomena and developing safeguards against future incursions. With extremely strict oversight, Dax added, her centuries of wisdom tempering the enthusiasm. No one wants another Reebok situation, but Major Carter's insight into ancient technology combined with our understanding of subspace mechanics could lead to breakthroughs that benefit everyone. Martok's voice boomed from a comm panel. And the Klingon Empire has extended formal alliance to the crew of the Odyssey. You will be granted territory in the Empire should you choose it, and your warriors will always have a place at our tables. Copple up, my friends. Today we celebrate not just victory, but brotherhood forged in battle. Teal'c inclined his head in respect. The Klingons understand what the Jaffa learned through centuries of struggle. That true strength comes not from domination, but from standing together against tyranny. I am honored to call Martok and his warriors allies. There's something else, Kira said, her faith evident in her voice. The prophets, the wormhole aliens, sent a message through the orb of prophecy. They say that your arrival wasn't an accident, that the collision of your hyperspace window with the wormhole was necessary. They called you the warriors from beyond who would stand between two futures. I think they knew what was coming with Reebok and the Wraith. Great, O'Neill said with his characteristic sarcasm. More godlike beings messing with timelines. That never gets old. But Daniel looked thoughtful. Or maybe it means we're exactly where we're supposed to be. The ancients had a saying, the universe is rarely so lazy. Everything that happened, the rift, the Borg, the Wraith, even us being stranded here, it all led to something important. Maybe that something is what comes next? And what does come next? Sisko asked, genuinely curious. O'Neill looked around at the faces of people who'd become more than allies. They'd become friends, family even. People from different worlds, different realities, united by the simple belief that freedom and justice were worth fighting for. Next, we keep doing what we've always done, O'Neill said. We explore. We protect. We stand between the darkness and the light, and we make damn sure that the light wins. The only difference is now we're doing it together. 2 Earths, 1 mission. To defend those who cannot defend themselves, Teal'c added, the creed of the free Jaffa. To seek out new life and new civilizations, Sisko continued, Starfleet's founding principle. To boldly go where no one has gone before, they finished together. The words meaning something new and profound in this moment. Through the viewport, the stars hung unchanged, but everything else had transformed. The United Federation of Planets had gained allies who understood the cost of freedom. The Klingon Empire had found warriors worthy of respect. And SG-1, refugees from another reality, had discovered that home wasn't a place. It was the people you stood beside when the universe tried to tear everything apart. The Odyssey would fly again. New missions awaited. The Alpha Quadrant remained as dangerous as ever, with Borg still lurking, Romulan plots still brewing, and 1,000 other threats waiting in the darkness between stars. But now when those threats emerged, they would face not just the Federation or the Klingon Empire or Earth's scattered defenders, but all of them together. 2 universes had collided, and from that collision, something stronger had emerged. Not Federation, not Stargate Command, but a new alliance built on mutual respect, shared sacrifice, and the understanding that some principles, freedom, justice, the right of all beings to live without fear, transcended the boundaries between realities. Captain Benjamin Sisko and Colonel Jack O'Neill stood side by side, representatives of 2 Earths that would never meet but whose children now shared the same stars. Behind them, the crews of Deep Space Nine and the Odyssey mingled, trading stories and forging friendships that would last lifetimes. And somewhere in the vastness of space, new challenges were already forming. But for the first time in a long time, both versions of humanity faced those challenges, not alone, but together. The game had ended. The alliance had been forged. And the universe, vast, dangerous, and full of infinite possibilities, awaited their next move. Whatever came next, they would face it as they had faced everything else, with courage, ingenuity, and the unshakable belief that together they could overcome anything. Live long and prosper, and may the Force, wrong franchise, but the sentiment remained, be with them all.